All right, good evening, everyone. It's 5 o'clock. Welcome to, this is a full house, so welcome to all the new faces here. I'm going to call this meeting to order. We are also opening up the special meeting for tonight that I'm going to run concurrently. So with that, please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. O'Connell, can we get a roll call?
Councilmember Borelli?
Here.
Councilmember No?
Here.
Councilmember Thomas?
Here.
Vice Mayor Saragosa?
Here.
Mayor Taylor?
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. That brings us to item 3, ceremonial matters. The first one, 3.1, is the swearing in of Police Officer Michael Liu. Chief Friend, is he available? Are we going to move this item?
If we can do it after the other ceremonial item.
Sure.
He actually made a late arrest,
Yes.
so I'm not going to get mad at him about doing
Okay.
that. So.
All right, so we will come back to that item, and we'll move on to item 3.2. This is the LGBTQIA plus proclamation. A proclamation of the City Council of the City of Placerville recognizing the month of June 2022 as lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, intersex, and asexual Pride Month. Whereas, for more than 2 centuries, the founding principles and ideals of American life have included liberty, equality, freedom of expression, and the pursuit of happiness, which are intended to apply to everyone. And whereas Marsha P. Johnson, a progenitor of LGBTQIA plus Pride Month, proclaimed, "No pride for some of us without liberation for all of us," inspiring a commitment to inclusivity, compassion, and mutual aid in support of these ideals. And whereas equality of opportunity and freedom from discrimination are fundamental to supporting joy, personal fulfillment, and economic success. And whereas the City of Placerville celebrates the American values of liberty, equality, freedom of expression, and the pursuit of happiness, and recognizes the importance of its residents, visitors, and employees to safely express their multifaceted identities, which enrich our communities. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that the City Council of the City of Placerville does hereby recognize June 2022 as LGBTQIA plus Pride Month, and honors all efforts that provide opportunities for a life free from discrimination and prejudice, and in support of equality and the pursuit of happiness. Sure. And I would like to open this up for a comment, and then I would like to invite Kaylee Terwilliger up here to accept the proclamation. But first, we'll open this up to comment. If anyone would like to step up to the podium and say a couple of words. All right, seeing no takers? Okay, Jonathan.
Speaking for the God of the Bible, that God loves every human being with an infinite and an eternal love, and that love is available for everyone to receive. God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan. All right, I would like to invite Kaylee Terwilliger up to the podium to say a few words and accept the proclamation.
Hi, guys. So, I'm Kaylee, and this is our queer youth group. We've been meeting every other Tuesday all school year. Our kids are range in age from, 10 to 15, and I know that's, so young for some of us to imagine, feeling different in your identity, but these kids, their ask at the beginning of the school year was to have social connection, and we worked really hard to build it. And so thanks for honoring their identities. These are kids in our community that hopefully will grow up and contribute and feel joy here as I get to. So thanks, guys.
Hold on there. She's got something for you, kiddo. There you go.
Come on, babe. No. Come on, get back up here. Take a picture. Where should we be? Right here?
What's going on? Oh. What are we doing? Oh.
Nicely done.
All right. You all are absolutely welcome to stay. However, a lot of times people choose to leave the meeting after receiving the proclamation they came for. Either way is up to you. We're going to move on now to Chief. Are we ready for 3.1? Okay. We'll wait 1 second and let the crowd filter out.
Stand right here. I'll do the talking first and then talk next. All right. So we can start now.
Yeah.
Good
go
evening,
ahead.
Mayor, Council, and of course our fantastic community. It's there are times being a police chief they're not so fun, but there are times like this when it's a real joy, and I really appreciate the position that I'm in because I get to welcome somebody new to our family, our PD family. Let's get over a little bit. There you go.
Making you nervous?
So this is Michael Liu. We swore him in as a police officer for the city of Placerville on May 9th. He comes to us by way of the San Francisco Sheriff's Department, where he worked for 4.5 years. We're thankful to the taxpayers of San Francisco because they provided him with over 1,000 hours of advanced law enforcement training. So that directly benefits us as a community and as a police department. Michael has an AS degree from the College of San Francisco, and he currently resides in Placerville. He enjoys the outdoors and everything that our rural lifestyle has to offer. I know Mike's got some people here.
Yeah, my parents.
So without further ado, here's Mike, and we'll let him introduce his folks.
Hi, Michael Liu. I have my dad here, Dave, and my mom here, Daisy. I want to thank the Chief of Police here for giving me the opportunity to further my career in law enforcement. Looking forward to working with all of you and working with the community of Placerville. And yeah, thank you.
Now we'll do the formal swearing in. We'll just do it in the same location. And I'd like to invite Mike's family to come up as well.
I state your name.
I, Michael Leonard,
Do solemnly affirm
do solemnly affirm
that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United
the
States
Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies,
against all enemies,
foreign and domestic,
foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully
that I will well and faithfully
discharge the duties upon which I'm about to enter.
upon which I am about to enter.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you.
Welcome. We're happy to have you.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. It's always great to swear in an officer, and we look forward to having Michael with us and filling out all the positions available at the police department now. So it's great news. Moving on to closed session report. City Attorney Ibrahimi.
Thank you, Mayor Taylor. The council did meet in closed session today. There was no public comment in advance of adjournment. The council voted unanimously to approve an agreement, tentative agreement with Local 39, and that MOU will come before the council at a future meeting.
All right. Thank you. Adoption of the agenda.
I'll move.
Second.
All right. We have a first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Moving on to announcements and presentations. We have brief comments by the City Council. We'll start with Jackie tonight.
I went to a budget review committee for the El Dorado Transit on Friday. I went to SACOG's May is Bike Month, kicking off a regional trails event. Saturday, I went to the trail opening, which is about 2 years delayed, but because of COVID, they couldn't have their trail opening event over at Oriental Street, and I watched the BOS meeting today. Thanks.
All right. Michael?
Nothing really. I just wanted to take a moment, if we could do a moment of silence for the 14 children and the one and the one teacher that were killed in Texas earlier today. It's another tragedy that is even hard to put into words, and so if everyone could just join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you for
Mr.
doing
Vice Mayor,
that.
unfortunately, that number has increased to 18 children killed, one teacher, with 2 police officers also shot and wounded.
Oh my gosh.
Thank you, Chief.
Truly a tragic event, and I think I can say on behalf of the whole council that our hearts are with those in Texas. It's just absolutely heartbreaking. So,
You know, what's really hard is that we keep saying this, and it's, it's like, when's something going to be done?
yeah.
Sorry, I'm getting personal.
Patty, do you have any comments?
Besides that one, yeah. I've had a busy schedule. It seems like I've been answering a lot of folks' emails and trying to solve a few problems. And we've had budget, and I've had a meeting with a 101 with LAFCO. and I think I understand it a little bit better now. I'm getting the whole picture. It's an interesting, and I think more people would be surprised if they took more of an interest in it and understood what it was all about. So anyway,
Thank you, Penny.
went to the Board of Supervisors meeting today. Cheered for our team. That's it.
Dennis?
I second all your thoughts, and I appreciate your comments regarding things going on in Texas. Pioneer Energy, they are alive and active, and they are continuing to serve us well. And I attended, I'm on the board, of course, so I attended our meeting on budgets, and more to come on that. But it was one of my meetings I went to. A busy week personally, but not too much with the city for the last couple of weeks, so that's all I got.
Dennis, could I ask you a real quick question? Somebody, and I can't remember who it was, said to me that their rates now are higher than PG&E. Do you have a comment?
I don't know that that's actually possible, but
Okay.
But they can absolutely call Pioneer Energy and have that discussion and have a meaningful discussion. If they call Pioneer Energy with their 12 last and have their 12 previous bills that they could send them, or even some of the bills, they can certainly have a more in-depth conversation about that, because that's overall that could be possible under some very slim circumstances.
Okay.
But the reality is on average people save about 6%.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, Dennis. I've had a busy couple of weeks. I attended a 3-day leadership summit hosted by Cal Cities with Patty, which it was a great 3-day conference. Topics covered included land use and homelessness and housing, and just a lot of interesting things that are coming ahead of cities to be aware of. I attended the COC meeting yesterday, where the COC agreed to allow the county to use some of their funding for the potential navigation center that they are pursuing. So that's a hopeful sign, and it was a generous action on their part, because they use those fundings for lots of different things. So it's just a nice move towards collaboration, which we need if we're going to accomplish anything in the near term. Attended the budget meeting, and I gave a talk to volunteers from Marshall Emergency Room. So, and that's it for me. That brings us to item 6.2. This is a presentation by Tim Cordero, our El Dorado County Fire Protection District Fire Chief, regarding the updated Insurance Service Office rating to Placerville.
Good afternoon, good evening. It's one of those days. It's a Monday on a Tuesday. But good evening, Mayor Taylor, City Council, and citizens of Placerville. I just want to take a little bit of an opportunity here to review the updated ISO rating that our fire district had. And the ISO is the Insurance Service Office. That's a third-party evaluation group that evaluates fire departments nationwide. And the criteria they use is not only the fire department, but our water system, as well as our dispatch center. This takes place typically about every 5 to 6 years. And our process began last spring. It got delayed a little bit due to the Caldor fire and a couple other fires that were happening across the state. And then the report was completed on April 25th of this year. The report will take effect on August 1st of this year. So just some recognition for some folks that helped me out with this process. It's a heavy lift doing this. Our fire marshal, Captain Braden Sterling, did a tremendous amount of work with not only the prevention statistics, but also our water systems. Chief McVeigh, who is our training chief, there was a lot of information required from training. Chief Lohan, who handles our fleet. Chief Batham, who is at the Camino ECC, is the battalion chief that's in charge of our dispatch center, which is through CAL FIRE up in Camino. Our surrounding fire districts, as they provided a lot of information on their staffing and apparatus that went into the report, due to the fact that we do in this county have a drop boundary system, so we do receive some credit for our neighboring agencies. And also EID and GPUD for their assistance with the water systems. And then a couple of the criteria that's utilized by ISO, it's not only rating the fire department, but like I said, they rate our water supply system, and they use what's the needed fire flow, and they take theoretical buildings throughout our district, and they'll do a hypothetical. If that building was on fire, there's a formula on how much the needed fire flow would be, and what is our ability and our water system's availability to meet that fire flow need. There's also the emergency communications, which is our dispatch center up in Camino, and their ability to not only receive and intake calls, but how they handle those and process those for us. And then, of course, the fire department. They score us on our equipment, our staffing, our training, the distribution of our fire companies, our operations, and our community risk reduction programs. And lastly, again, is our water supply with our purveyors, with their inspection and flows of hydrants, and then our ability to provide the necessary water up to 3,500 gallons per minute. And that is, as I mentioned, they take a hypothetical building and say, is there enough water to mitigate that? They do that up to the requirement of 3,500 gallons per minute on those buildings. I kind of added in this slide, which is the Fireline rating score, because a lot of people, as we know in our community, are dealing with insurance issues and the challenges facing there. And the Fireline rating score is separate from the ISO rating that the fire department receives. And as we know, wildfire is a unique peril because of the environmental factors around the property influence the risk of loss. Fireline score was developed specifically to address that potential loss. A study completed in 2015 found that nearly 4.5 million homes were at a high or extreme risk of loss due to wildfire. Fireline has fewer requirements than the PPC program, but it provides a similar scoring mechanisms that translates into a risk score or potential loss classification to help insurers properly price fire insurance for properties and environment at a greater risk of loss due to wildfires. Their scores range from a 0, which is negligible, to an extreme of 30. And then it's designed, the PPC is designed to provide specific predictive losses with the fire department's ability to provide fire protection. The Fireline takes into that external wildland aspect, which is really outside of the control of the fire department. It's environmental. So that's what really comes into play with a lot of what our community is facing, is the challenges from the Fireline scoring. When you get into the PPC grading and rating for the departments, the ratings are based on a point system, 1 through 105.5. For our emergency communications, our dispatch center, there's a total of 10 points available. The fire department, there's a total of 50 points available. Our water supply system, a total of 40. And our community risk reduction, there's 5.5 points available. When you get rated as a fire department, a class 1 through 8 fire department means that you have a credible fire department, a credible dispatch center, and a credible water supply. If you roll into a class 9, that means that you have a credible dispatch center, a credible fire department, but no credible water supply. And then a class 10, you don't meet the criteria for either of those, including areas that are beyond 5 miles of a recognized fire station. The PPC did make some changes back in 2014. Historically, you receive 2 ratings. One in this example would be a 6, and the second would be a 9. The class 6 would represent areas within 1,000 feet of a fire hydrant and within 5 miles of a recognized station. The class 9 represents areas that are within 5 miles of a fire station but beyond 1,000 feet of a hydrant. And they changed that rating to the new one would classify that department as a 6 or a 6X, and the X represents the previous 9. Currently, when we were evaluated, our fire district was a 4 and a 4X. And then just kind of going through some of the scoring, as you'll see, there's total points available in different categories. Our rating that was done in 2015, and then our new rating and scoring for 2021. For our dispatch center, the emergency reporting, there's a total of 3 points that are available, and we got all 3 points this year. On our telecommunicators, a total of 4 points available. We got 3.91, a slight dip from 2015. And then on our dispatch circuits, from the total 3 points available, we got all 3 points, so an increase of 1.43 on our dispatch center. Our dispatch center does an amazing job. They captured 9.91 of the available 10 points, so almost a full rating scoring on that. Now kind of the meat and potatoes of your fire department and how we're performing for y'all. On our engine companies, there's 6 points available, and we scored 5.18, a slight increase, almost a half a point increase there. The next category on our reserve apparatus, you'll see a slight decrease there, and our fleet managers really kind of worked on tightening up our fleet. You know, previously back in the years we had apprentice programs and volunteer programs, so we reduced some of our fleet, a slight decrease there. Ladder 26, Joe's favorite, receives almost full credit, and so it's old, but it's hanging in there for us. An interesting one for me is I noticed there was a decrease in our reserve ladder truck, and I'm still looking for that reserve ladder truck that apparently we used to have. I don't know if Joe took it home or I didn't do the report in 2015, so I'm not sure what that was scored on. The big one for us where we lose points as an agency is on our deployment analysis. And you'll see that there's 10 points available. We scored 2.46. And what that means is they take our fire district, the overall size, which were 281 square miles, and then they have a calculation they use on what percentage of that is developed with buildings and infrastructure that need to be protected, and then what percentage of that is within 1.5 road miles of a staff fire station and 2.5 road miles of a staff ladder company. So when I spoke to one of the folks back east about this, her response was, well, hey, you just need to open another station and you can get those points. And I said, well, we have 281 square miles and I have 5 staff stations. And she said, oh, you need a lot of stations. So we lose a lot of points there, but that's really kind of just what we're up against, because the cost to open those fire companies would be tremendous. You'll see on the next line with our company personnel, we got a pretty significant bump there of an increase of 3.2 points. That largely has to do with our increased staffing that we did about a year and a half ago, going to three-person engine companies on our engines. So that paid dividends for us right there. Our training, we get almost full points on the training, 7.79, almost a full point increase on that. And then the operational considerations, what those are is, do you have standard policies? Do you have standard SOGs? Do you have standard agreements with your neighboring agencies? And so we get full points there. The net result was 31.66 of the 50 available points for our department, and we had an overall increase of 4.7. Our water supply system, which again is typically EID and GPUD, there's a total of 40 points that are available there. We had a slight decrease in our water supply system, and we're kind of reaching out to EID to see if perhaps what the cause of that was. With our fire hydrants to remain fully scored, and then again a slight decrease in the inspection and the flow testing. And I'm anticipating that the flow testing reduction is because of the drought. I think they were flowing less hydrants, and with COVID they might have had less people to inspect those, because the points are based on how often you're inspecting your hydrants. Our community risk reduction, again, this is a little bit of an interesting one, because there's a total of 100 points that are available, but then they map that down to a total of 5.5 for the overall rating. So if you look at the top section for our prevention codes and enforcement, of the 40 points that are available, we received 29.48. We got a slight increase. That's the additional staffing. We added 1 person to our Fire Prevention Bureau. If we were to have 1 or 2 more inspectors in there, we would gain some more points there. Our public fire safety and education, of the 40 points available, we hit 34.67. There was a pretty good bump there from our last one, and I'm anticipating that was because of the involvement with the fire safe councils that have really taken off since 2015, and quite honestly, better documentation by our engine crews of the public education that they are doing. And then on our fire investigation program, we received full points of 20 of the available. So overall for our community risk reduction, we went up by 20 points, and when you map that down into their ratings, it was just over 1 point, but of the 5.5 points that are available, we're at 4.63, so a little bit of a bump there, which is good. And then lastly, there's a thing called divergence, and the divergence is a factor that mathematically reduces your score on the relative difference between the fire department and your water supply. And so they look at how much water is available, and then really what is the effectiveness of the fire department to utilize what they have available. And it's going to be a score that reduces. There is no total available points for that. You see in 2015 we lost a total of 3.5 points. In this rating we lost 0.96. So we got an increase of 2.5 points on that. So that's an improvement for the operations of the fire department. And just to kind of recap the summary of it, our command center up in Camino, they're doing a fabulous job. We get almost full points for that at 9.91 of the 10. The fire department received 31.66 of the 50 points available. And our water supply system, 27.40 or 27.25 of the 40 that are available, and our community risk reduction of 4.63 of the 5.5. So a total score for the fire district was 42.49 of the 105 that it's available. So what does that mean for the community? Our final classification, we dropped from a 4.4x to a 3.3x, which is pretty significant for us. I'm pretty proud of that. If you look nationwide, 16% of the fire departments have a rating of 3 or better, a lower score. So we're in that top 16%, which is pretty impressive for a rural fire department with the limited staffing that we have. I think it speaks volumes to the crews the work that our crews do out there every day, and their documentation, keeping up on everything, the fire prevention, and really getting the job done. So it was a proud moment to see that. That's a good reduction. A lot of folks have been calling in inquiring about, hey, what does that mean for my insurance? And so I'm here to tell you that typically, as the classifications get lower, which is better, you should expect to see some type of reduction. The insurance companies are a private entity. We don't control what they do. And again, I would also go back to that Fireline score rating, which really for our community and our county is what really hinders the fire insurance, is that Fireline score. So we're doing our part best we can to be an active participant in making the insurance more affordable, but that's where we're at. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
I have a question, Tim. I remember, and this is many years ago, when we used to have a ton of volunteer firemen, but I remember Placerville had one of the highest ratings and people, the respect, and especially, and I'm thinking of the insurance companies, and it was always my understanding that our insurance rates were lower because of this fantastic fire department we had. So are you saying that they don't use that as a measurement anymore, the insurance companies?
So they do use this ISO rating, your PPC classification.
Okay.
So depending on what the Placerville City of Placerville Fire Department was rated at back then would contribute to what the costs were. Since those days now is they've also added in the Fireline rating. And the
so should we all go home and call our insurance companies with this report?
Well, here's the caveat to it is that this will go into effect August 1st, and it's automatic. It automatically goes into the system, and it's something that you know if you call your local insurance agent and say, hey, can you adjust because they're now 3?
I'll call Lori.
They don't have any control over that. It goes automatically in the database.
I'm
your
teasing.
local insurance agents don't have the ability to modify that number.
Well, congratulations. This is great, I think. Great report.
Thank you for the presentation, Chief. It cleared up a lot of questions I had reading the packet in my agenda, so I appreciate that. And congratulations, that's a great achievement given the geographic area that you cover and the terrain and all of the challenges that we have in this county. So congratulations and thanks for sharing that with us.
Chief, thank you. So just to clarify, so basically we'd have to like double the amount of stations in order to hit what the classification says here. I mean, for like those full points.
To get the full points on our deployment analysis, you would have to open quite a few more fire stations. And we need about 7.5 points to get to a Class 2 department. And you say, well, hey, it's only 7.5 points, but the points are hard to come by. And that's really the main one where we lose points is just the ability to staff additional stations.
It's literally, we're talking millions and millions of dollars in order to be anywhere near that in terms of staffing and infrastructure, everything else that goes along with that.
A 3-person engine company is about $1.5 million a year to operate.
Yeah. Thank you.
Congratulations on those numbers going up, and you guys do a great job, and we really appreciate it.
I'm going to add something. I just, I spent a lot of time with you guys over the years, and I know how hard those numbers are to come by, and how hard our staff has worked to, just over the getting things improving. They didn't start off at a bad place to begin with, and every little increment of growth at this point is really hard to come by, like you said. And I do know, I have personal experience with how hard
the staff works and how many jobs each individual takes on at a fire district. You don't have just one person doing one job. You have one person wearing 2 and 3 and 4 hats depending on what the needs are. And everybody steps up. They're coming in on their days off. They're working really hard to make sure that these things happen for our community. And I can't begin to express my appreciation for that effort, because they do put in the yeoman's work. They work extremely hard. And I know because my son's one of them, and he complains to me every once in a while. But he also gets the job done. And matter of fact, he just got an award. So I was pretty proud of him for that. I had to throw that in. But so thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
All right, we will move on to item 6.3. Oh, I'm sorry. I'll open this up for public comment. If anyone would like to speak on this item, please step up to the podium.
Sue Rodman, resident of Placerville, and grateful for Chief Cordero and all of the people who work with him. My experience with fire crews comes from the Forest Service, but I do know how hard they work. I've been to fire camp, I have helped, and it is a very tough job, and I much appreciate them, and to have us move up a whole rating is pretty incredible. So thank you very much.
Jeff England, El Dorado Disposal. I just want to add real quick that when I hear a report like that as an operations person, and I hear that the areas of improvement really speak to communication and training and those types of activities, which are where you guys really improved, that speaks to leadership. And well done. Nicely done, you guys. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to close public comment. Those were great comments. Thank you. We'll move on to 6.3. This is to receive and file report by the Placerville Economic Advisory Committee, and Mr. Morris has the staff report.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I wanted to just say that I think our Economic Advisory Committee has been working hard, and tonight we have our chairperson, Deborah Miller, and one of our members, David Thomas, here to present the report.
Good evening, council members. I'm Deborah Miller. I'm the chair of the Placerville Economic Advisory Committee. David Thomas is going to also be giving you some information, but I wanted to give you some background of we call it PEAK. The background is we've been an advisory committee that was formed in 2013 to assist in business attraction, business retention, and development of business-friendly policies. On December 10th, 2013, the committee prepared and council adopted the first economic development strategy. In 2021, PEAK embarked on updating the economic development strategy. That strategy was completed and adopted by the City Council on February 8th, 2022. At the council meeting when the strategy was adopted, the council asked the committee, at least annually, to focus on a limited number of strategies in order to provide progress to completion. At their meeting on February 11th, 2022, PEAK reviewed the strategies and selected 5 strategies to focus on and appointed subcommittees to work on the specific strategies. Following is a list of those strategies, subcommittee members, and work to date. And Dave Thomas is going to tell you about those.
Good evening, Council. We have 5 basic strategies that we are focused on. The business outreach visits. The purpose of this strategy is to determine business needs and how the city can best respond to those needs. We also have a historic inventory. The purpose of this strategy is to review for accuracy and expand on the existing historic resources list. We have potential annexation areas. The purpose of this strategy is to explore potential annexation areas that may provide opportunities for the city. We also have site inventories. The purpose of this strategy is to identify properties available for commercial development and to look for opportunities to attract new businesses. And strategy number 5, the broadband infrastructure, and to assist and provide advice to staff and the consultant on implementation of the city's broadband master plan. In addition to this work, PEAK meets monthly to review progress and to look at specific projects in the city, such as current hotel projects, the affordable housing projects, other housing projects, and business opportunities. Recently, the committee was asked to review and provide input on issues before the council. These included formula businesses in downtown, outdoor dining, and downtown events. The committee is currently working together well to implement the adopted strategies. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions or comments from the council during this item? Okay,
Can I say one thing? Hopefully I don't steal your thunder, but over the years, we have so many different groups that volunteer their time and individuals that volunteer their time for our community. And I always, it is a mantra of mine to always acknowledge and really express my appreciation for people who literally volunteer their time to support our community in the ways that they can and how they can. And once again, we have a group of, I'm not sure how many people. I was going to say 5, but 6?
7 or 8.
6? And we have one open seat for Placerville Drive.
7 was one.
7.
Yep. So 7. Okay. We have a great group of people.
Placerville Drive needs
Placerville Drive needs a rep. If you know anybody, Patty.
yeah.
I wanted to express my appreciation and acknowledge their contributions and just say thank you. And if you could pass that on to the rest of the group, I'd appreciate that as well.
Thank you, Dennis. Well said. You did kind of steal my thunder a little bit, but I did want to mention, just for those in this room and for those watching at home that maybe aren't familiar with PEAK. PEAK is a committee that is completely led by local business owners and local residents to help the city, really think about how they want to grow and attract businesses in a way that benefits the community. And we really appreciate your work. So thank you. Thank you for what you do. All right, with that, we will move on to 6.4.
Public comment.
Oh. With that, we're going to move on to public comment. If anyone in the audience would like to comment on this item, please step up to the podium. All right, seeing none, I'm going to close public comment and move on to 6.4. This is to receive and acknowledge the availability of the public review draft initial study mitigated negative declaration regarding the armory. And Mr. Rivas has this report.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. This request is for the council to receive and file information on the proposed Placerville Armory affordable housing project, and primarily to acknowledge the availability of the public review draft, initial study, and mitigated negative declaration that's been prepared for the project pursuant to the California Environmental Quality Act. To give a brief description of the project consists of the demolition of the existing Placerville Armory facility and the construction of approximately 83 affordable residential units for low and moderate income individuals and families, which would include 34 one-bedroom units, 27 two-bedroom units, and 22 three-bedroom units. The four-story apartment provides a multi-purpose room with kitchen, youth room, laundry room, property management, leasing office space. Site improvements include 96 parking spaces that include 12 tuck-under covered vehicular parking spaces, outdoor patio areas, walkways, and landscaping on the existing 3-acre lot that's located at 212 Armory Drive. And the property contains 2 parcels. One is the existing Armory site that's owned by the state of California, and then 2, there's a little sliver of property located between the Armory and Railroad Drive that's currently owned by the county of El Dorado, and they're currently in the process of transferring that property over to the state to help facilitate better site planning for the project. Attachment D is provided for the council and for the public that provides a rendering of the proposed apartment, site plan, building elevations, landscaping plan, tree removal, preservation plan, and preliminary grading plan. Again, I want to emphasize the site is owned by the state of California. The state is the lead agency for the project, and that is by the State Department of General Services, which will have the authority to approve the project. The city has no authority over the project. The city, however, is an active participant in the development of the project and has been since its inception. The project will be constructed and managed by Jamboree Housing Corporation on a long-term 55-year lease. The architect and landscape architect for the project is LPAS Architect and Design, and the civil engineer for the project is BKF Engineers. So with regards to the draft initial study and mitigated negative deck, this document was prepared by NCE for the State Department of General Services. A 30-day public review and comment period has commenced and began on May 11th, and the comment period will end on June 10th. Comments must be received by the Department of General Services no later than 5 p.m. on June 10th. And the notice of intent to adopt a mitigated negative declaration is attached for the council's benefit as well. And on that, there are 3 different locations where copies of the mitigated negative deck can be obtained if somebody wishes to get a hard copy of the document. It's probably a little over 1,000 pages, so it's quite a thorough document. But I do want to add that to date, staff has received 2 comments. One from the fair. El Dorado County Fairgrounds submitted a comments, and we also received comments from one of our planning commissioners. We will forward those comments on to the Department of General Services for their review and comment to be included in their environmental process. So a little bit of background on this project. So back in January 15th of 2019, Governor Newsom signed an executive order recognizing a severe housing shortage in California, and that executive order directed the Department of General Services to inventory all state-owned parcels that are considered surplus property by the respective state agency, and further directed that the Department of General Services collaborate with the State Department of Housing and Community Development in prioritizing affordable housing development on these excess state lands. Following the identification of the state, the Placerville Armory is considered surplus. City staff has been engaged with HCD staff in facilitating the affordable housing project that would meet the desire of the state to expand affordable housing opportunities and would also assist the city with meeting its local affordable housing needs and further implement the city's general plan housing element goals. On October 19th of 2020, the State Department of General Services issued a request for qualifications to solicit proposals in developing the affordable housing project under the executive order, and Jamboree Housing Corporation was selected to construct and manage the project on this site through the long-term lease. The state would continue to own the property and lease it out. City staff continues to work with Jamboree staff and general services in implementing the project, and again, we want to assist as much as we can to daylight the project, and that's why we're here, to make sure the public is well aware that there is the opportunity to review on the environmental document. The completion of the project will assist the city in meeting its regional housing needs allocation, which we call RENA, for the 2021-2029 planning period by providing an additional 83 affordable housing units that are required by the city's housing element. The project will be 100% affordable by providing workforce housing to residents that are making 80% or below of the county average median income. The city needs 34 units in this low-income category, which is 51 to 80% of the county's AMI, and 56 units in the very low-income category, which is 0 to 50% of the county's AMI. Staff brought the availability of the draft MND to the Planning Commission back at their meeting on May 17th. The state would like, or they are interested in, providing more in-depth presentation of the project to the Planning Commission and the City Council at future dates. We're looking at possibly July 15th for the Planning Commission meeting, and then possibly August the 9th City Council meeting where the actual project architect would come and provide a slideshow showing all the various aspects of the project. So with that, that concludes staff's report. And again, it's just to daylight the availability of the environmental document. And I'm happy to answer any questions council may have at this time.
Thank you, Pierre, for that detailed report. I had a couple of questions regarding those email correspondences that came in right before the meeting, but you did a good job answering them. So just to reiterate, anyone that emails the city regarding this, those will automatically be forwarded to DGS?
Yes, we will provide that service. We will ensure that if any concerned member of the public or concerned agency or whomever would like to submit comments and they inadvertently send it directly to us, we will forward it to the state.
Okay, great.
Absolutely.
Are there any other questions or comments?
Yes. Pierre, regarding what Kara just said, the letter that was submitted to you by the fair
yes.
Concerning the road and the, I absolutely think that it should be considered. Having my building is in that area, and I think that it would be a really good idea to consider it. So what you just said is that our hands are kind of tied, that the state makes up the money, and also concerning the roads, if we know of a situation that maybe could be corrected.
The project is being, we are internally circulating the project for review and comment. The project will be providing for frontage improvements. The entirety of Armory Drive that fronts the Armory site is within their property, and so I do believe they expect to repave and work on that road. These comments will be submitted to the state. I'm sure if the state has the money and the ability, they would provide for curb, gutter, and sidewalk from the project site all the way to the fairgrounds. We would hope that that happens. So we encourage people to submit comments and make that kind of request. Again, this is an environmental document, so is that a negative impact on the environment? Maybe. Again, I haven't thoroughly reviewed the environmental document yet, but staff is doing that, and we will provide comments as well on that. And staff will be making the request that they improve the road and do provide for curb, gutter, and sidewalk to connect it to the fairgrounds, because we do expect a lot of pedestrian traffic then along along Armory.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, that it's going to have a similar, like, in terms of like height requirements, things like that. Do we have any ability or any say in that? I mean, I know it's their land, but the state's still it was like anything. I mean, if I own a piece of property in West Sacramento, it doesn't mean that I get to do whatever I want with it just because I own it. The state still has to be a partner with us, I would imagine, right, in terms of what they can do and not do. It's not, quote-unquote, sovereign land to them.
It is sovereign land. It'd be like if the federal government or even the county, for example, the county, constructs its buildings according to its plan. If you recall, it's quite a while ago, but when the county was further developing the El Dorado County Government Center, the city's avenue for review and comment was the environmental document. So it's sort of the same here. Staff does not see an issue regarding the height. If you recall, the city approved a height of 55 feet for the Hampton Inn and Suites, and 46.7, I think, was the height that was approved through variance for the Mackinac Hotel. And so for this, I think the maximum height is going to be 50 feet. I haven't calculated what the average is because, of course, it's a slope piece of property, but staff does not consider that height to be excessive or to cause any issue. It's outside of the airport area of concern, so there is no imaginary boundary that's going to hit. The apartment will be well below the apartment complexes that are directly across the street that are up on the hill, and so I don't think you're going to see something that's going to really stand out because it's 50 feet as opposed to the maximum 40 feet that's allowed in that zone district. I hope that helps.
No, it does. I'm still getting back to in terms of, I mean, like this, the state owns a bunch of property in Natomas, so they can do basically anything they want to in Natomas without having to get like the city or the county to say that's okay.
Well, that's correct, but you got to understand that would be subject to CEQA, and they would have to, prepare an environmental document that would be circulated to all concerned responsible agencies to review and comment. Typically, I know under the state, they are looking at some level of consistency with the local general plan. But again, they've been working with the city, and the city has been very supportive of putting in affordable housing on this project.
Yep.
So from the city's perspective, there has not been a conflict. In fact,
Gotcha.
I think when all is said and done, staff will probably come back at some future date for a general plan amendment and rezone to provide consistency then with the land use with our current general plan and zoning.
Gotcha. Any, I know you haven't reviewed it thoroughly yet, and I know you're going through it, but any concerns in regards to traffic, anything like that, mitigation-wise? Would you have to look more into it still? I don't think it's a lot of people, but I just wanted to see if you had any first thoughts.
No. With the traffic that will be generated from the project, we think Ray Lawyer Drive is more than adequate to support the additional traffic, and then some.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to thank you for collaborating with the state and representing our interests and doing what you always do. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
I do have one question. When I'm looking at this project, and from our experience up on Clay Street with the Cottonwood Apartments and the parking, I see that we have 83 units with 96 parking spaces, and you have a high number of two-bedroom and several three-bedroom apartments there. I can only imagine that these parking spaces are not sufficient to support the 83 units with multiple residencies inside of each one. Possibly, I could see well over 150 vehicles if you just do the math. Is that anything that we have any control over? Is that a standard that somebody has set that they're meeting, or are they just putting in as many parking spaces as they can and saying, that's all we got?
I know they're trying to put in as many spaces as they can. That was one of the primary drivers between obtaining that property that was county-owned, was to expand the parking. But staff hasn't done it at that level. We're still at the review stage. So we'll be working with them if that's one of the concerns that comes out through the process. We hope to be able to do what we can to further additional parking.
Yeah, I do know that, there's up on Clay Street, there's parking constantly in the no parking zones, in other areas that are by permit only or reduced time zones. It's just, that design I don't think was able to support the number of vehicles, and I don't see this one either. And so the influx into the other areas surrounding it is a big concern to me. So,
yeah, comment noted, and we'll certainly forward that along in the development of the project.
Could I just piggyback on that too? Because again, having property up there, that was one of my fears too, is that Ray Lawyer Drive is going to be a parking lot. And I'm having problems now keeping people out of my parking lot because I need it for my, and Rayleigh is just overwhelmed when there's anything going on at the fairgrounds. It's really quite a fight for all of us property owners to try to protect our parking for our businesses, And so that was one of the things that does concern me, is that we're going to have a parking issue.
I think you're going to continue to see this as a state policy, though, to push towards no minimum parking requirements. In fact, there's already been a couple of bills out there that have tried to do that. One that got tabled last year, but certainly through the CTC and pretty much every transportation apparatus, you're going to see. We'll probably get to the point where there will not be minimum parking standards. So, just as a forewarning.
Thank you.
If I could just add a little bit more information. So just generally speaking, state agencies and school districts do not have to comply with the city's zoning code. There's other provisions of the municipal code that they may have to comply with, but zoning is not included. With respect to transportation impacts, there's one added layer of review with this particular project. This project is specifically being carried through because Executive Order N-06-19 was adopted and required the state to identify surplus properties and convert those to these types of housing projects. And there may be additional, for example, requirements or potential streamlining that allows them to move forward with this. As you all are aware, there's also Senate Bill 35, Senate Bill 330, which ease a lot of otherwise restrictions when you're developing housing projects. So, but that should also be discussed in the MND.
Thank you. All right. Without any other further discussion up here, I will open this up to the public. If anyone would like to comment on this item, please step up to the podium.
Leo Bennett Koshan. I talk too much. You guys are a AAA. Awesome. Auspice and highly acclaimed. Thank you.
Thank you, Leo.
Sue Rodman, Placerville resident and shopper at Rayleigh's, and aware of what happens when the fairgrounds has events and there's no parking anywhere. I would hope that we could ask them, please work very hard to get as many parking places as they can. Placerville is really short on workforce housing. Our population almost doubles when people come to work. And a lot of those people would probably rather live in Placerville if they could find a place to live. So I think that having some affordable housing in the city is good, and that Armory building has been nothing but an eyesore for years now. So to get something better in there, and I thought that the design plans looked like a definite improvement. So that's my feedback.
Thank you, Sue. All right, seeing no other commenters stepping up, I will close public comment at this time and bring it back. Any other further discussion?
I'd like to agree with Sue in that we have, the parking thing is one issue, and some of these things that are coming along. There's been a long need for affordable housing, workforce housing, low-income housing in our community as well as in the county. And I know that the city has been working really hard on several projects to get them up and running. And this is one of, I think, 3 that we have in the works that will provide additional housing for people in our community. I know the county and in District 3, they have a significant amount of housing projects that are coming forward as well. So I look forward to our workforce. I know that our kids are challenged with finding places to live. This may not be we may not like some of the aspects of this project, and hopefully we can affect some of them to more fit into into that little niche up on that hill and have it work well there. At the same time, there's a lot of people that say not in my backyard and don't want to do this, and yet we have an opportunity here, and I think we're doing a good job, and I appreciate staff's effort on it as well.
Thank you, Dennis. I agree. I think that this looks like a really great project. It looks like a great design with trails and playgrounds and patios and just a place with great amenities for the people that live there. I think it's a good location. I really want to encourage anyone that has concerns to make sure that they make them known to the Department of General Services or city staff so that we can give the state feedback. This is our opportunity to influence the design process through the EIR and provide feedback. So this is the time to make your concerns known, and I really want to encourage people to do that, as it will improve the project. I think the soundproofing was really interesting. I hear the racetrack from my house, so the amount of soundproofing that's going to have to go into that is impressive. But I think it will be a great project to add to our community. So, all right, with that, I will close this item and move on to the consent calendar. All matters listed under the consent calendar are considered routine and will be enacted by one motion by roll call vote unless any member of the council wishes to remove the item for discussion. Do we have a motion? Would anyone like to comment on the consent calendar? If so, please step up to the podium.
Sue Rodman, Measure H and Measure L committee member. And 7.5 is a wonderful thing to get accomplished and get moving forward to get more of our sewer lines out of the creeks. So, hooray. Thank you, Rebecca, for working on this one and all her staff.
Thank you, Sue, for highlighting that. All right, seeing no one else stepping
Kara,
up.
I want to comment too when you bring it back to us.
Okay. I will bring it back to the council.
Okay.
And Patty.
Thank you. I'm sorry I didn't jump in with this. I was in a conversation with Cleve, and I'm going to have him come to my rescue and talk about what we talked about. But it's just to acknowledge that this is the end of the 5-year study, and that the rates are possibly going to change, and have him explain it.
Dave, throw something at me if I say something wrong, okay? So what we had discussed is the fact that, yes, we are going into a new study. The last study we did was for 5 years, and we actually implemented, I believe, over 6, didn't we, Dave? Was it just the 5 years?
Just the 5 years,
okay.
Correct.
So this next one we'll go into, I wanted to point out some factors that will go into that, especially for our sewer. And 2 of those are the fact that we just completed our bond refinancing. So that's a savings, a considerable savings over time. That will be factored into that consideration when we do that study. The second is the other project we're working on, currently waiting to hear from the state on, is our solar project, which also will bring in savings for the wastewater plant. And both of those will be effective in helping us keep our rates down. So I can't say that it's going to eliminate any increases. I do anticipate there will be some increases over time just because of the cost of living and et cetera that goes up over time. But anything we can do like that will help, and those 2 factors will be helpful in keeping those rates down. So,
all right. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll move the consent calendar.
Thank you, Dennis.
Second.
All right, we have a first and a second. Regina, can we get a roll call?
Councilmember Borelli?
Aye.
Councilmember No? Aye. Councilmember Thomas?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Zaragoza?
Aye.
Mayor Taylor?
Aye. Thank you. All right, that brings us to item 8, public comment for non-agendized items. So this portion of the meeting is reserved for persons wishing to address the council on anything that is not on the agenda. If you would like to speak, please step up to the podium. I appreciate it if you state your name voluntarily and keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. If you would like the council members or staff to get back to you about any of your concerns or comments, there's cards on the back table that you can fill out your contact information as well. So with that, I would like to invite anyone who wishes to comment to step on up.
Leo Bennett Koshan, citizen gadfly. I wear my mask for those on the public because my wife is immune cancer compromised, and I try to follow due diligence when somebody is like that. No political intent. I'm here to tell you that we will be sending you a flyer for Golden History Days It's the inaugural event under your new policy. Deeply appreciate your new policy. Deeply appreciate Terry and how he has held our hand and responded. And you have one very, very patient person. But I knew I'd like him because, after all, my wife's name's Terry, so awesome. And I'd like to thank Mayor Taylor, who has graciously agreed to, we're still figuring it out because I understand her children are lobbying, but one way or the other to participate in the parade as one of our dignitaries. And she is free to invite everybody else on the council if they like. I'm still looking for feedback. I'd really like you in a wagon. Other people want you in a convertible. Some people are offering me really old-timey pickups, but they said I got to check with Chief Wren because maybe it's not legal anymore. But I say, hey, Chief Wren's officers are escorting this in a safe manner. So little bits and pieces to be figured out, but we're really excited. I want you to know that the wagon train folks are so excited. They were worried, it's a transition, rumors start, and they thought that they were having to go all the way back to the days when they would just ride through the town. So they'll be stopping at the bell tower, having a little bit of their recognition, and then I've been to Benham Park, if I'm saying the name right, and I think it's going to be a wonderful, successful event, and proud to be working with your wonderful staff. Thank you so much. I won't repeat it, but you're still a AAA council.
Thank you, Leo.
Jonathan Gainsborough. Love that spirit, Lyle. Very nice. Nice to smile. So just a congratulatory message to, spent an hour and 15 yesterday with the EDOC Continuum of Care meeting, and they were very happy to approve their funds toward the moving forward on the Navigation Center. You probably know more of the detailed language than I do. This morning with the supervisors, the vote was 4-1, but there's a unanimity there, even though we won't mention who is still holding out for the sheriff's possibility, even though the continuum of care was advised by higher-ups with home base that was not a realistic, that dog would not hunt as far as HUD, Housing and Urban Development, and state and national funding. So thank you for leading, not just with those 84 units with affordable housing, because even when we have an organized entry system, we don't have a coordinated exit plan for affordable housing. And so leaders have to lead. And as it was spoken this afternoon, it was great to see Mayor Taylor and Councilwoman Borelli, and I can do this, and
please,
city attorney, no, city manager Cleve. These big words throw me, even though I am a sesquipedalian, which is a fancier of six-footed words in 3 or 4 languages. The Latin and the Greek is always fighting for the next phrase. But congratulatorium unlimitarium to you all for moving ahead. I've been coming to this podium over 2 years. Boise, Idaho never expected to set up a national standard of compassion for the homeless crisis, but they did become national. I'd like to see Placerville become nationally known for the best compassion audit and the care of those that cannot care for themselves. The majority in the homeless situation is way beyond what you might imagine, having worked with them almost half a century. God bless you all. Let's see the Navigation Center come to completion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jonathan.
This is sort of spontaneous. Thank you for doing some road repairs in the city of Placerville. Outside my house, there were some road repairs done, and I appreciate it. There's a banner question, because with MLK, the banner got taken down because it was purported to be political, and it wasn't, but that happened, and then it got put up, and there was this whole to-do about it. And then there was a banner that was up, and it was kind of, I know you guys know about it, but I'm just wondering if you could solidify those policies a little bit around the banners that are hanging on Main Street so that it's equitable. And the other is, I don't know, it was kind of gross to see the scalps at the event this weekend. So I don't want to make a big to-do about it, but it was, kind of gross. So that's it. Thank you, Melinda Velasco.
All right. Thank you. Any other public comment? All right. Seeing none, I'm going to close public comment. Question for staff, Terry, in terms of the banners, we do have a policy in place in terms of having proofs ahead of time, and that just didn't happen because it was kind of a last minute thing, but that kind of contributed to the mix-up, if I'm speaking correctly. But there is a policy in place where banners need to submit a proof and have it approved before going up.
Could we have an explanation of what she's talking about? I have no idea.
Sure. Cleve, do you want to, or Cleve or Terry?
I'll just comment that the banner application has a place where it asks for what is going to be displayed on the banner, and that is for that particular MLK banner. It wasn't necessary. It was described in just a few words, and it wasn't a really good description. And so we've been reviewing that.
Yeah, maybe I just add the description that they provided for that particular banner did not match what the banner said, basically. So we asked them to revise it. They did. We worked with them on that, and it was revised, and the banner was put back up. That happened because they did not meet some timelines, and we tried to work with them and put it up anyway. That's been tightened up in Terry's office so that we don't miss those timelines. If they don't get them on time, it probably will not go up in the future. So that's what happened in this case. Mm-hmm. So we want to just be more strict and make it fair. Everybody needs to meet those guidelines, and then we should be fine.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Written communication. Looks like we had one email from Nicole Gottberg regarding homeless on May 11th, and that's it. Okay. So we will move on to 10 ordinances. 10.1 is to waive the second reading and adopt an ordinance adopting a military equipment use policy, approving the use, acquisition, collaboration, and seeking of funding for military equipment. And Chief Wren has this item.
Thank you, Mayor. During our regular City Council meeting on May 26th, the City Council introduced and waived the first reading of this ordinance. The purpose of this report is to provide information regarding Assembly Bill 481 and to request that the Council adopt an ordinance which adopts a military equipment use policy and approves the use, acquisition, collaboration, and seeking of funding for military equipment within the Placerville Police Department. A brief summary of AB 481, which is codified in California Government Code 7070 through 7075, requires all law enforcement agencies to obtain approval from the applicable governing body prior to taking any action related to funding, acquisition, collaboration, or other use of, quote, military equipment, as the term is defined in Section 7070C, as in Charles. 7070C as in Charles states military equipment means the following. and I'll quickly run through that list. Any unmanned, remotely piloted, powered aerial or ground vehicles, drones, which we do not have. Any mine-resistant vehicles or armored personnel carriers, which we do not have. Any Humvees or military-type trucks, wheeled vehicles that have a breaching or entry apparatus attached to it. We do have a Humvee, but it's not used for the purpose of breaching. It does not have any of the apparatus discussed. Tracked armored vehicles that provide ballistic protection to the occupants and utilize a track system instead of wheels. Now, funny thing, going back to number 2, which is armored personnel carriers, the only thing that we came up with on 4 was tanks. So we do not have any tanks in the Placerville Police Department. Number 5, command and control vehicles. Those are like your command post type vehicles that we use for the fair. We do not currently have one of those. I would imagine in the future the police department would probably seek to obtain one of those for the fair or any large events that occur around the city. It's just more convenience to have our operational command and control out in the field with us as we're taking care of those incidents or issues. 6, any weaponized aircraft, vessels, or vehicles of any kind, we do not have. Battering rams, slugs, and breaching apparatus that are explosive in nature. We do not have any of those. Firearms of 50 caliber or greater, we do not have. Ammunition of 50 cal or greater, we do not have. Specialized firearms and ammunition of less than 50 caliber, including assault weapons, as defined in sections 30510 and 30515 of the California Penal Code, with the exemption of standard issue service weapons and ammunition of less than 50 caliber that are issued to officers, agents, or employees of the law enforcement agency. We have patrol rifles, although it wasn't necessary for us to daylight that. We have nothing to hide. We issue patrol rifles to our staff. Any firearm or accessory that is designed to launch an explosive projectile, we do not have. Flashbang grenades or explosive breaching tools, tear gas, or pepper balls, including standard service-issued handheld, excluding standard service-issued handheld pepper spray. We do have flashbangs. That's the slang term for it. They're light sound distractionary devices. We currently have 8 in our inventory. They're used for a number of reasons to distract a person during a takedown, or it's hard to come up with something now. We don't have a SWAT team, so we won't be kicking in your door and tossing flashbangs at you. We also have 3 pepper ball launchers. We purchased those a little over a year ago. However, they're not deployed because the company that supplied those was also required to supply the training, but they have yet to do that for us. So they're sitting in our inventory. Taser, shockwave, microwave weapons, water cannons, or LRADs, we do not have any of those. The following projectile launch platforms and their associated munitions, which are 40 millimeter launchers that have bean bags, rubber bullets, or specialty impact munitions. We do not have any of those. Any other equipment is determined by the governing body or state agency to require additional oversight. Moving on, the Placerville Police Department policy section concerning this matter is outlined in section number 706, titled Military Equipment. This policy has been published on our website since March under the hyperlink title, Placerville Police Department Policy Manual, as well as an email address listed soliciting any questions or concerns related to this policy. In March, Placerville Police Department held a public Q&A about 481 during our Coffee with a Cop event. Only one person made a comment, and that comment was, "This sounds stupid." Moving on. The council must make a set of findings specified in AB 481 to approve the policy. The required findings are summarized below and included in the ordinance. Number one, the military equipment is necessary because there is no reasonable alternative that can achieve the same objective of officer or civilian safety. Number two, the proposed military equipment use policy will safeguard the public's welfare, safety, civil rights, and civil liberties. Three, the equipment is reasonably cost-effective compared to available alternatives that can achieve the same objective of officer and civilian safety. And number four, prior military equipment use complied with the military equipment use policy that was in effect at the time, or if the prior uses did not comply with the accompanying military equipment use policy, corrective action has been taken to remedy non-conforming uses and ensuring future compliance. The use of equipment listed in the policy enables the department to provide the highest ability to safely and timely resolve unpredictable and volatile situations which might otherwise rise to the level of a lethal encounter. This policy is drafted to be used in conjunction with our police department's use of force policies, and only when, pursuant to those policies, use of the specified military equipment is merited and authorized. Military equipment in the policy is used as a component of best practices for law enforcement agencies around the country. These best practices have been tested in the field and determined to be the best method to safeguard the public and our officers. Loss of these items would jeopardize the welfare of the community and the safety of the officers. There is no reasonable alternative that can provide the same level of precision, use options, or protection to the community, suspects, victims, bystanders, or officers. In its evaluation of alternatives, the department also determined that the military equipment in the policy is also the most cost-effective. Provided in Attachment 1 is the inventory list of all military equipment that PPD currently has in its inventory and plans is currently using or plans to use in the future. We will also annually provide the council with a list of what is currently in the inventory, and if it became required for our officers to use an item that's identified within our policy section, that will also be daylighted. Also attached is PPD's military use equipment policy. The use of military equipment identified in the inventory is vital to PPD's mission and will continue to be strictly regulated through an internal process and oversight. So with that, we're recommending that we waive the second reading and adopt an ordinance adopting military equipment use policy, approving the use, acquisition, collaboration, seeking of funding for military equipment. And I'm happy to answer any questions that I can.
Thank you, Chief. This is, we went over this recently, so this is for those that are up here. This is a repeat and a lot of the same information. I do have one question though about the pepper ball launchers.
Yes.
How long have we had those without the training needed?
About a year and a half now. And they're proprietary. They're made by the company called Pepperball, so we can only receive training from their authorized instructors. And we keep getting told that they're trying to gather up enough people regionally to put on a class. Well, that's I've had very direct conversations with that company.
And they're blaming it on COVID, I'm sure.
COVID is I hear that.
COVID gets blamed for everything.
Everything, yeah.
Well, they should give us our money back.
Yeah. I'm hopefully optimistic that we'll be able to receive that training within the next 60 to 90 days. So fingers crossed on that. I've received the training. I think I'm the only one in the organization that's actually done that. But the last thing you want is for me out there actually participating in anything. First of all, my eyesight's bad, so I probably would be more of a danger to somebody.
TMI, Joe.
Yeah. I brought my glasses.
If you need the mayor to write them a letter or anything, just let me know.
Okay, thank you.
That's pretty ridiculous to have purchased something for that long and not been able to get the second half of that item, which is the training. So
right. I do have a question. So, of these items on this military equipment list, if you use any one of these items, are you required to report to the city council that that item was used?
Yes.
So if somebody gets tased, you have to come and report to the city
Well, no,
council?
a taser is not one of the items listed in the.
Taser, let's see, military equipment includes but is not limited to the following: and taser, shockwave, microwave weapons.
That's different.
No, those are
something different than a taser.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Taser, shockwave. That's something.
We think it is a item. The
free high frequency.
The legislation was very difficult to navigate, and the legislator that authored the bill is no longer in office. So getting those clarifying answers was a little difficult. So we think it's an item made by Taser that's actually a shotgun shell that you shoot at somebody, and it's got probes that hit them, and it's got a little electronic generator on the item that shocks them from a distance. But it just sounds like something that we would hurt ourselves with. So I don't want to. I get guys in the back lot shooting at each other with it.
Thank you.
But I always try to make light of things. But this is very serious to us. We would never. We don't occupy the city of Placerville. We live up to our motto of partners with the community. There's nothing in our inventory that would be. Before this policy, I would have said military related, but we're not that kind of agency. So.
Right. What's nice about this is that while they're going through all this effort to try and daylight all these pieces of equipment, we already know what we have. It's not a secret. It is. You're very transparent already, so this is just an exercise in futility and another government mandate that we have to do and spend our time on that really doesn't equate to anything but in this case, what we're already doing. So,
yes, I'm glad you mentioned that, because if we did decide to get a drone, I know we've had a drone presentation previously, and that's still something that's kind of on the list.
I was going to ask you
before this assembly bill. We would have come to you anyway, given a presentation and a staff report. So it's asking us to do things that we normally do in our normal course of business when we appreciate the support that the council gives us. So we want to show the community too, hey, this is what we got for our safety and for our benefit. So
thank you.
I still want you to get a drone.
It's on the list.
All right. Any other questions, comments? Okay, we'll open this item up to the public. If anyone would like to comment, please step on up.
This time I'm in gadfly mode. And Dennis, I'm sorry, I have to drop your grade to an A. It is not an exercise in futility to exercise democratic process. You guys are awesome. You do great with public comments and all that. It doesn't change the need for the Brown Act. It doesn't change the need to not have militarized police departments. You are so blessed that you have a police department that seriously partners with the community, that understands they're not occupiers. Believe me, BC, before children, I was arrested 50 times in nonviolent civil disobedience. Not every police department, especially the Secret Service, understands that little old me with a baby in my front pack doesn't need a full compliance hold when I say, hey, sure, I won't sit here and pray in front of the Department of Defense lead anymore if you give me a 30-minute conversation out of the public eye. Out of the public eye, full plane compliance, and my poor son got listed as an accessory. That was the worst blow. But again, kudos to Chief Friend. As the previous speaker said, you guys lead. You're a little town, big heart, big actions, and in the Black Lives Matter tents and everything, Placerville PD stood up, partnered with the community, took a knee, which caused a lot of flack, and did partnering with the community, community-oriented policing. It was awesome. And they changed their policy. Officers are not authorized to use a cardioid restraint. Policy 301.34. There are other agencies in this El Dorado County that have not changed color to red. I went to their meeting, and instead of a 3-point list, it went on and on and on. My God. And then I saw that here. Our peaceful working mother, Black Lives Matter group in front of the courthouse, never a serious issue, fully protected everybody by our PD. My ride was late. Out comes the other law enforcement agency with all their non-lethal equipment, full riot control gear. Believe me, I know what a militarized police department looks like, and we have one, but it's not here. So I just commend that the list is so small, that the transparency is so clear, and I don't understand how pepper ball became a military weapon. That's my question. Thank you.
Thank you, Leo.
Good evening, Kathy Lishman. That report was very helpful. I wasn't at this council meeting when it was originally made, and it was very informative. And I listened to part of it the last time it went before the Board of Supervisors, and I couldn't help but ask a question, what is it for? And was told that it was for something like the protests 2 years ago. And so this is so different, what I'm hearing now. I really appreciate it, because it was kind of frightening. And I know that I read that the military equipment, this doesn't mean equipment our military uses, so that was interesting too. And I gather that it's really retroactive, so that and transparent, so that communities know what their police department has. And I loved reading the list where we don't have this and we don't have that and we don't have this, because when you look at the list and you don't know what it is, it's kind of frightening. So anyway, I'd be interested in knowing if the whole purpose of it, of the policy, of the AB 481 was just to daylight and let communities know what their police department has already. And I like the fact that if anything else is purchased, that you will know about it. So I'm gathering that once this ordinance is passed, nothing different will happen than is happening now. So that's comforting to know. And I don't think we're gearing up for a massive riot. Thanks.
Thank you, Kathy. All right. See no one else stepping up. I'm going to close public comment on this and bring it back to the council for more discussion or a motion.
I'd like to make a motion that we waive the second reading and adopt the ordinance.
I'll second.
All right. We have a first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Roll call.
Madam Mayor, we should probably take a roll call.
All right.
Nope.
Roll call. The Board of Supervisors does all in favor for non-budgetary things.
I believe for an ordinance, we do want to do a
for
roll
an
call.
ordinance. All right. Okay.
Public
All
hearing.
right. Roll call.
All right. Councilmember Borelli?
Aye.
Councilmember No?
Aye.
Councilmember Thomas?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Zaragoza?
Aye.
Mayor Taylor?
Aye.
Thank you.
If we ever do get an MRAP, though, I'm going on that ride along.
I want a tank
I
just
wanna
to
ride
kind of
in a
hang
tank.
out with it. I don't plan on using it, but how cool would it be to drive a tank?
Totally.
We're all going in the tank.
All right. Item 12.1. This is to authorize the mayor to sign, item 11.1. Just to let the public know, I was really sick this past weekend, not COVID, during my prep time, and I'm feeling much better, but if I seem a little off tonight, I apologize, and that's why. So
You're doing great.
Item 11.1, this is adopt a resolution adopting El Dorado disposal rates for the collection of solid waste and recycling within the city of Placerville. And Mr. Rivas.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. If you recall your last meeting on May 10th, El Dorado Disposal provided the council with a very detailed presentation on the proposed annual rate increase request for the collection of solid waste and recycling and the organic waste collection program within the city. Each year, El Dorado Disposal makes such a request to the city to review rate adjustments, primarily based on two factors. One is the Consumer Price Index, or CPI, for California, and then the other is the Producer Price Index, or PPI, for number 2 diesel fuel. So the CPI increase is 4.226%, and the fuel adjustment is 2.361%, for a total net adjustment of 6.587%. The other, I would say, is significant rate increase is implementation of SB 1383, and that has to do with the collection and recycling of organic waste. This bill is primarily an effort to reduce emissions of short-lived climate pollutants. SB 1383 requires mainly three things. One, collection and recycling of organic waste from residences and businesses. Two, the recovery of edible food and food service businesses. And three, procurement requirements that would require the city to use products made from recycled organic materials such as renewable energy, compost, and mulch. El Dorado Disposal is making a specific request, and it's an increase due to extraordinary circumstances. And that's in the franchise agreement under a provision in that franchise agreement between the city and El Dorado Disposal. And this is for an organics recycling fee in the amount of $2.94 per residential customer. And pickup services would be on a bi-weekly collection basis. And just for comparison, if the city were to offer a weekly organic waste pickup services, then the requested rate increase would be $7.59 per month per home. Staff wishes to emphasize that this request, that the city is not imposing or levying these proposed rate increases, that El Dorado Disposal levies these rates in accordance with the franchise agreement that is in place between the city and El Dorado Disposal. So with that, staff is making the recommendation that the City Council adopt the resolution adopting El Dorado Disposal rates for the collection of solid waste and recycling within the City of Placerville franchise area. We do have El Dorado Disposal staff that are here in the audience that can answer any specific questions that you have. We also provided in your staff report was the copy of the same presentation that was provided at your last meeting. So with that, that concludes staff's report. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Pierre. Any questions, comments?
No, I'm good.
You good? All right. We'll open this up to the public.
Sean, I have no complaints. Moved here from the city, so I have lots of complaints. So I'm very happy with El Dorado Disposal. I noticed that the price index is tied to diesel fuel, and that you have representatives here. So I'm curious if they do have natural gas, if they're thinking of all electric, and will any of that solid food waste actually power our disposal trucks someday? I know I'm not supposed to do this, but the mayor can't gravel me so quickly. Thank you so much for this meeting. I apologize. I'm the grandfather of a brand new baby daughter, and I am taking my wife out for our opal wedding anniversary. So, gotta go.
Thank you, Leo.
About the policy itself, I tried looking online at the El Dorado Disposal site if there was any details about how the collections would change or how the household waste would be handled on the bi-weekly pickup schedule. So if you could direct me to a website or answer specific questions, that would be awesome. Okay. Mostly it's the What type of waste is it?
Please address the council, and then after public comment ends, we'll
okay.
We'll distribute questions as necessary.
Then I'm good for now.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sue Rodman, and they come and pick up my trash every week. And every other week it's green waste, and on the weeks that it's not green waste, it's the recycles. And it seems to be working fine. And when this first came up, I said, okay, how much of my weekly trash is really organics, would fit into this organics? And I would say it's probably 60 to 70% of my regular weekly trash that goes out that would actually fall into organics. Orange peels, pea pod, all the things you throw away that really are organics. So my question is there a way, it seems to me like if that's the percentage that is my weekly trash that really is organics, and I take that out and put it into the recycles or the green waste, there won't be very much to pick up on the weekly basis. And I'm thinking that, is there a way to have these trucks pick up the if we were to separate the organics in our weekly trash and put it out in 2 separate containers to be picked up, why couldn't the weekly trash handle the organics? So that's my question. And I could do it on a bi-weekly basis, and I don't think that would be a problem. One of the commenters last week said if she had something that was going to be smelly, just put it in the freezer until it's time for it to go out. Well, that would solve a lot of the problems, I think. And I can see why we need to do this. Methane really is a terrific pollutant. It's about 3 to 5 times more problem for air pollution than regular old carbon dioxide. So I support what we're doing. I'm just wondering why we can't do this just as a part of our weekly trash and just split the two items. Thanks.
Thank you, Sue.
Kathy Lishman again. I thought perhaps they'd give another report on this, like the chief gave a report on something he'd previously given a report on before it was opened up to public comment. I can see why we need to do this, but I do not like the process at all. I just think that there has to be another way to do it. It seems like it's really set up for failure. El Dorado Disposal should be encouraging people to compost at their own home and providing containers for those who choose to do it. I'm sure there's all kinds, and to have to truck this so far, and then we'll be increasing rates because of the gas. And why should people who already compost have to pay for a service they won't use? And why should all green waste containers have to be trucked so far away when many will not have food in them? People have more than one green waste container. They might put food in one, or they might use their garbage disposal. So that isn't helping the city's sewer treatment plant. When people decide that I'm not going to do this, I'm just going to continue using my garbage disposal. As the population increases and the apartment building that we heard about being built, how are we going to cut back the garbage we have when we have more people to make garbage? So I don't suppose people can opt out. And every other month we get a bill, so I don't know why it had to tell us that it's $2.94 a month when it should have said it's going to be $5.88 every bill cycle. So I think there's another way of doing it. I know how hard it is here, and I don't know if the county has adopted this yet or if we're the guinea pigs, but I just think it's not a system that's going to work here, and I feel really bad that yard waste gets trucked all over there that doesn't have any food garbage in it. Thanks.
Thank you, Kathy.
Hi. Chris Teeter. I'm a resident here in Placerville. And I just had two questions. One, it sounds from the flyer that we got, it sounds like you're looking at two different possibilities, if that's correct. Any idea when a decision would be made, whether it would be a biweekly or a biweekly or a weekly decision? Or okay, that's up to you guys then. Okay, and then the basic increase of the 6.5, would that be placed on before the increase as far as the split in the organics, or is it after that rate increase goes in? Did that make sense?
No.
Okay, so it sounded like there were, did that make sense? Okay, you talked about two rate increases. One of them has to do with the organics, and then one also has to do just with the 6.5 or 6.25 increase. So I was just curious when that 6.5 would be figured into the bill. Is it before or after the decision on the organic separation is done?
Linda Teeter, resident. My question is the concern for the city streets. If we're increasing the number of garbage containers, we happen to live on a slope, so we have neighbors. We bring them down to the driveway. Possibility some weeks, instead of having 4, we now have 6, and that's really going to impact the ability for the garbage trucks and for ourselves for our movement. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. That is everybody in the room. Thank you all for sticking out this meeting and commenting on this item. I would like to invite El Dorado Disposal up to address any of the questions and anything else that you would like to discuss.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Ross Rieksecker. I'm the site manager of the hauling side for El Dorado Disposal. So I tried to take notes for the questions, so apologies if I miss any details, but I think Jeff will support me, and hopefully we can get all the answers for you. So at first, for resources, for the most part, we're in kind of the exploratory phase of figuring out which program to move forward with, and so it's hard to really push all the details out just yet. If you look at our website, there's a food waste pilot program link in the resources tab, and there's also a frequently asked questions document that's provided there, and there's a lot of great information about just the whole program, the do's, the don'ts, the details. I think that can answer a lot of your questions. And as we learn and narrow down which program we'll move forward with, so the weekly or the every other week, we're going to push out lots of education and outreach, package, as we like to call it, that will answer all the questions for the people, because it's a new service in a sense. A new service added on to an existing service, I guess, would be a way to look at that. Composting, we love the idea of composting and supporting it. The issue is CalRecycle has mandated SB 1383. It's a law that's signed, and it's effective as of the 1st of this year. CalRecycle doesn't really list any incentives at this point or an opt-out mechanism for 1383. So it puts us in a position where we have to analyze every option to fulfill the requirement of SB 1383 and then present options for a program to be voted upon. I think maybe Jeff could speak to the composting a little better too in a sec here. I know he's really good at that part. I think for the timing, the CPI and the organics, they would kind of be simultaneous. I think for the most part, the CPI is something that's added onto the rate every year, and then the organics would just be added on top of that as well. And the CPI is a percentage of the existing rate, so it doesn't add in the organics and then make the rate larger, I guess, if that was the question. If we did a weekly service or an every other week service, there wouldn't be an ad in containers. It would be the same containers that are in the field existing. If we did a weekly service, it would increase the frequency of pickup, which would put 3 trucks on recycle week. So when you put your recycle out, you'd also put your organics and your garbage. So that would be an increase in trucks, which the concern is very real. Having another truck on the road, they're heavy trucks, they're big, they got a lot of blind spots. So that's a very real concern, but it would not add any containers to the mix, so to speak. Jeff, did I miss anything?
That's great. I guess I could let me try to speak to a couple of that relate to composting. As Ross alluded, the state really hasn't developed a mechanism for rewarding or recognizing home composting yet. What the state is going to track is the amount of trash per person. That's still the ultimate metric that the state is going to recognize in the end. And their expectation, especially in mandatory service areas, is that everyone will be participatory, and they have not provided an opt-out. As it relates to the material itself, again, as we talked about last time, there are a couple of good points. Right now, as it stands, the existing green waste on every residential curbside has the ability to have food waste mixed in with it effective July the 1st. What that means is that material has to be taken to a different location than where we've been presently taking it. Lopez Ag in Sacramento is not permitted in order to receive and process a food waste. So right now we'll be taking it to Yolo County. It's considerably more expensive, $18.50 per ton more to dispose of it, in addition to the extra transportation cost going to Yolo. That's the mechanism for the additional rate specific to every other week service. The reason, obviously, for service that's in the $7 a month neighborhood for weekly service is having to purchase another garbage truck, which runs about $400,000, and obviously drivers in order to achieve that weekly service. We do have the concern that the ick factor, which is real, and that will be detrimental to participation in the program, but that's very much the balancing act, that has to be done relative to determining what level of service you want. And it's our hope that people will do the things that the state is recommending in order to keep the program successful. But let's be frank. We know anecdotally and in other areas there will be participation drop-off when it gets hot. The ick factor is real, and our hope is that we can mitigate it through outreach and and having people there and do those kind of things. But at some point, we would be in a position for you to assess whether or not weekly service is more viable, and approach those kind of things. But we can't turn on and off either a weekly or a biweekly situation. We can't purchase a $400,000 truck and have it sit half the year. We can't hire people, and then drivers in particular, and then let them go seasonally. So some of those types of flexibilities just unfortunately don't work relative to the economies of scale and nature of trash operations. With regard to the question about, and I apologize if I misunderstood it, Sue, with regard to being able to commingle the organics with the trash, that's correct. Right now, there's a high percentage, that's what this is all about, is driving the organics out of the trash. But our composter would not be able to make what we're seeking to make, which is compost material fertilizer, if it's got that trash material in it. Plastic bags, all of those other things have to be separated from it, which is why the food waste organics and paper soiled foods have to go in with the green waste. Right now we are mixing our commercial food waste that comes from the restaurants with this. It's not a fun process at the MRF, I can tell you. The ick factor is real, but this is what we have to do in order to achieve these goals in Senate Bill 1383. If I haven't answered adequately any questions, feel free to clarify, and we'll do our very best.
I have one question. In terms of the location in YOLO, so is that going to be the only location for the greater Sacramento region? I mean, in the, I guess like a state, like the 6-county region. I'm just wondering, do they even have the capacity? Because I can't imagine we're the only location that's going to have to start taking additional waste to that location. If that's
YOLO has significant capacity. I do not know if all of Sacramento County plans to go there. I know that we secured a rate with them about a year and a half ago in anticipation of this. But we are also taking other steps as the county is relative to long-term infrastructure for dealing with this material. Waste Connections has purchased a company which has facilities in other areas, and included is in Ukiah, where they are developing a very large composting processing facility where our material may end up going someday. Even though it's further, there are internalization opportunities that help drive down costs. Make a long story short, the county is exploring both short-term and long-term scalable biodigester type systems and things of that nature. You can spend from $3 to $25 million just like that on a biodigesting system, and there are amazing systems out there. Sierra Nevada Brewing is a great example that's not far, that's got a remarkable closed-loop scalable system. They're out there, but they're very expensive. But the county is exploring those options. They're working with other companies to find locations, and they're also looking at a pilot program right now that is scalable, specific to a school energy program. So those are the kinds of things that we're working towards. I hope that answers.
Thank you.
Sure.
Jeff, I've got a question. And Sue's comment kind of sparked this, and I'm not sure if you intended to or not, but, she made a good point that with the organics out of the garbage can, you really don't need your garbage picked up as much. Mm-hmm. And I think right now garbage is getting picked up on a weekly basis. And I'm assuming that that's largely because it has included organics, and if it's longer than a week or so, it gets icky, mm-hmm. which is, what we've talked at length about recently. Right. So would it be possible, I'm assuming it's the same trucks, too, that handle the organic and transport organic material as regular garbage. So would it be possible just to go down to every other week on garbage and every week on organic?
So right now the state requires what it considers protrusibles, trash, to be picked up on a weekly basis. That's a fundamental state law that everybody who hauls trash adheres to. About the best I think I can offer, and I suspect Sue already has the smallest size cart, is that if you're able to successfully get enough material out of your trash cart to reduce your volume, you may be able to reduce from a 96 to or a 64 to a smaller size cart, which would definitely favorably impact your rate situation. But beyond that, as it stands with the state, we're required to pick up trash every week.
Is it putrescible if the organics are out?
That would be a question for Cal Recycle, I would ask. There's still plenty of icky stuff like diapers and things
I'm
in your trash. But,
very familiar. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions? Okay. All right.
I don't have any questions, but I did want to make some comments. As everyone's talking here, I wonder if there's any value for us in polling our residents and seeing how many people compost and tracking how many people start to compost, just as a kind of a defense argument as we move forward, because it doesn't seem right that the state can mandate that we have to throw away our organics and that we can't compost. And I know that people who would rather start composting than deal with the ick factor.
The state's not saying that we can't compost. They're just saying that we have to pay for this service no matter what.
Right, but I'm just saying if we document how we're doing it ourselves, we at least have an argument when they, want to ding us for whatever compliance.
So would this be considered a tax I mean, well, because what I'm looking at is in terms of a nexus study to
Right.
reflect how they're forcing us to pay. So this is how they get out of doing taxes, is they assign fees instead of taxes. Now, the fees are coming from the company that's required to provide the service to us.
Right.
And so they've just kind of handed it off down the road where they're not culpable for the cost of it. And the guy goes out of business anyway, the legislator, he quits anyway. So he's out of the picture. But the government is essentially associating a fee with this, but they're not calling it a tax because they're forcing somebody else to charge us for the privilege of getting rid of our garbage like this.
So I have two answers to your questions. First of all, just to reiterate, the city is not the one that's levying this. And Proposition 218, Proposition 26 only come into play when a government agency is levying the assessment or the fee, for example.
Yeah.
And again, the state is not assessing anything. The state is mandating that we change our behavior. And because under, for example, Prop 26, an exemption to having, like a protest hearing, for example, is that if a resident, if a citizen is paying for a specific service that they are receiving, and the cost of that offsets the value of the service that they're receiving, then it's not considered a tax. In this case, El Dorado Disposal is providing this new service. True, we have to have this service in the same way that there are many things that we have to have. But in so doing, they've calculated what that cost to them would be, and they've apportioned it to each resident to be able to determine what they can accept from it. So our franchise agreement allows El Dorado Disposal to increase their rates based on two principal things. One is if there is a cost of living adjustment that they can factor in. That's one part of this rate increase. And the second is if there's any change in the law or order that mandates them to do something differently, they don't have to subsidize that cost and essentially eat it. They can levy that exact amount on ratepayers. So that's why this is not considered a tax.
I have a piggyback on that question, though. It's not just the pickup. We're being told we have to do reporting, which takes our staff time, which is costing us, the taxpayers, for something we're not getting in return.
Right. It is an unfunded mandate, and I don't disagree with that. But in the same way that there's a number of new pieces of legislation that the legislature has mandated that we do that takes staff time, but that it's supposed to be included in the cost of service for local agencies. So I completely appreciate your concern. I hear it all the time, but it's unfortunately not something that they believe that they have to reimburse local agencies for.
So we eat it.
Yeah.
So I have a question. Don't we? I remember you talking about this. Don't we have to produce a certain? Is it pounds or something that? And if we don't meet that criteria, we're subject to fines.
760 tons. Or
I'm not sure what you're talking about. So we have to procure 781 tons back from what we send up there. We have to buy it back.
No, what I meant is
you're talking about reducing the amount.
No, I'm talking about. Are we obligated to a certain amount of pickup tonnage?
No.
It's going to show up in the return.
Where it's going to show up, as I believe Jeff mentioned, is they're going to measure how much your garbage is reduced because you take that organics out of it. That's where they're going to measure whether or not you're achieving your goals, is how much your garbage is being reduced, what you're taking to the landfill.
So where do
to Patty's point, though, I think what you're saying is if we don't reduce it, say like by 18%, do we get fined?
We're going to get fined, and where does that kick in? Where's the fines come in if we don't prove something?
The goal is to reduce by 75% by 2025. So that's what we're trying to achieve.
I agree with Kathy Lishman. I think this stinks.
In more than one way.
You're not even participating in the pilot project.
I just think this is the most ridiculous thing that's ever come. I mean, we get a lot of.
What is not discussed is what happens on the back end of all this, where we have to actually purchase back,
exactly,
or receive back.
871 tons per year.
871 tons of this, thank you, compost into, or sell it.
Exactly.
Or find a source. This is like trying to find a source for our plastic bottles after we've been recycling them all. Because every community, I mean, just think this, our little town of, what, I don't know. 11,000 people, but how many residents? And we're producing 800 and something tons of product. We're not going to be able to sell that because everybody else is going to be able to try to sell it too.
Well,
this is going to be where are we going to put it?
And you know what else really just galls me are the exemptions that are going to be allowed. Anybody that lives over, what's this?
4,500 feet.
4,500 feet in elevation are not going to be subject to this. Come on. This is...
Question for Pierre. Did we get any clarity since the last meeting regarding the material that we have to procure, and if that's something that the city has to actually procure and use, or if it counts towards our procurement quota if developers or individuals use it? How?
Unfortunately not. I think,
Okay.
yeah, both the city manager and myself spent considerable time with CalRecycle staff and trying to get a handle on exactly what do they mean procurement of this amount of tonnage annually that the city is going to be required to purchase. And so it's a target. And so we have to show, and then we got into little nuances of it's more than a good faith effort. And Cleve, maybe you can help me out. It was a substantial
effort
rather than a good faith effort to be able to demonstrate through our reporting of how we're trying to achieve the procurement and then, of course, sell it. Staff is currently working with a consultant that specializes in this arena to see if there's some options maybe the city could utilize that would reduce the burden, at least in terms of being able to adequately meet a target.
Okay.
And staff will report back with that once we got more information.
One point that they did bring up, though, we're not required to use that 871 tons within our community.
Okay.
We could contract, for example, we could go to Apple Hill Growers to see if they have use for that in their growing, or a farmer down in the valley. If we can find someone that says, yeah, we'll take your share, will they buy it? Do we have to buy it and then they take it? That's a whole nother question, but at least it doesn't have to be used within our community.
I'm glad they thought this through.
Yeah, sounds like it.
We've done a lot of complaining about this bill, and this is a really frustrating, huge task for staff, for El Dorado Disposal, for the county, to try to wrap our heads around this major change. But I do want to just follow up with what Sue mentioned in her comments. This methane is a real problem, and we do have to take bold action to address it. And adding topsoil to farms, if it doesn't have to be used like in the city urban area, that will in the long run be a positive thing. It's going to be a painful process to get there, and I have a feeling that there's going to probably be lots of changes over the next 5 to 10 years that staff is going to have to be reacting to, and the community is going to have to be reacting to, and it's going to be really difficult. But
Well, I want to make it clear, I'm not blaming the El Dorado Disposal.
Oh, absolutely.
They're
No.
not at all.
Yeah.
I mean, this reeks so much like
It just-
the CalRecycle bottle program that has hundreds of millions of dollars.
Yeah, now they
sitting in
can't get rid of
accounts.
it.
Yeah.
And they can't. I mean, it's created a cottage industry onto itself with really. I mean, it hasn't really done anything to divert either. So, we'll see where this goes. Because again, I mean, just like a lot of the pollution items, whether it's at CARB or at the legislature, I mean, we're peeing in the wind. I'll say it nicely. Where we're fighting, we're doing something that none of the other states are doing, that none of the other countries are doing, and so it puts us not only at a disadvantage economically, but our businesses. Just like, for instance, if you're having to mandate electric vehicles, I mean, for farmers to have to go deliver products to other states, I mean, they're not even have the capacity to how do you even power your vehicles to get into other states? Or when you have vehicles that aren't electric coming into our state to take things, it just puts them at a complete disadvantage. So it's just, I won't say it's a vanity project, but it's a vanity project. And so, unfortunately, we're forced to do things like this.
Is there any collective effort to push back on the state on this? Any referendum on this legislation? Anything that has been creeping up? Is there something that we can do to support an effort, whether it's through Cal Cities or League of California Cities or any other efforts?
Cal Cities is working to.
They had the demonstration that morning before we got there.
They are asking the legislator to spend. What do you?
I want to say I think it was 180 million to put back into.
I think it was even more than that.
Well, I think it was 1.6 billion altogether for various
for all of their asks.
funded
Okay,
mandates, and
Right.
a significant amount for this. Cal Cities.
Good luck.
But it's my understanding
Advocating for
it's not to change this, it's for us to use to educate and implement the programs. So.
And just as a reminder, this was actually approved in 2016. It's just this portion of it became effective recently. So I think the best that we can see is new legislation to, one, clarify some of the terms, like what does procurement mean, and two, the potential for funding, whether it's through grants or other components. But we can't. It's too late to referendum this.
Wait, but you can't undo it in some way?
I mean, I suppose what you can do is similar to the grassroots effort from a few months ago to overturn SB 9, and then they backed away and they're coming back in 2 years. But the idea is to bring forth to the voters an initiative that basically prohibits the legislature from far-reaching measures that basically overtakes, in that scenario, land use laws. But in this case, it could be anything that's like unfunded mandates or so.
Yeah, you could pass a referendum. I mean, for instance, the bail industry passed a referendum when the legislature passed no bail, and so we put the law on hold. But outside of actually getting the signatures to do that, it moves forward, or the legislature itself, putting something back on to stall it. But man, just for reference sake too, so we have a $97 billion budget surplus, and the governors may revise. There's only about $3.5 billion that's what I would call fungible. Everything else has been put into one-time funding or stashed into other accounts. So there's not a lot of even maneuverability there. I mean, we'll see what the legislature does, but that's what the current May revise looks like.
Jeff, did you have any closing statements that you wanted to?
I just had a brief ad as it relates to composting first, which is that El Dorado Disposal, unfortunately appreciates that at this point the state hasn't really assigned value specific to composting as it relates to the metrics that they track. However, we recognize that it has great value for Placerville and El Dorado County, and I do want you to know that it is very much a part of our outreach, that we are very open to community gardens and other related type projects, and that in the greater effort to make this not a failed program and have it morph over time into something that is relevant and helpful for El Dorado County, I think that doing surveys and gathering that type of data, whether the state is asking for it at this point or not, does have value as it relates to Placerville and the county's ability to hopefully influence as this program plays out. If everybody's not doing it because of the ick factor, then that needs to be reported back to the state, and hopefully they'll adjust and go forward, as we like to say at work. So I would offer that. Those two things really, if I may, especially as it relates to composting here.
All right, great. Thank you so much. And we really appreciate the presentation that you gave at the last meeting and taking the time to be here again as we come to terms with this. And
have we?
Just take it.
Take it. Okay, so with that, I will bring it back to the council.
So we're we're being asked to make a decision right now, whether it's a 1 week or 2 week?
Yeah, what we proposed was the every other week, the 2 weeks, so the lesser amount of increase, but it's totally up to you. You have the resolution, and attached to the resolution are 2 sheets. One proposes the 1 week, and the other proposes every other week. So it is totally up to you to make that decision.
You're the one that went through the...
I know. We had kind of discussed this quite a bit at the last meeting, and I think the consensus was to do the every other week pickup. And if the community really complains about the ick factor, we could potentially go up to once a week, but we realize that we can't go back and forth because there's a ramp up and
too much cost for.
Yeah.
Well, we'll right out of the gate, we'll figure out the ick factor because that's going to start, midsummer.
Yeah, and last week we forgot the day, so it's bad at our house right now, and it's right next to my car.
Put it in the freezer.
Yeah, put it in the freezer.
Yeah, I like that idea, except my freezer is fully utilized.
I was going to say, if you have room in your freezer.
I even have a spare one, also fully utilized. But I am really hesitant to raising costs on people that much before they've had a chance to decide for themselves if that's what they want. But I am open to suggestions on this. I mean, the ick factor will, has the potential to really affect the community in areas that are close together. The cumulative ick factor, I don't really know what that's going to look like when it applies to everybody, but.
I see composting as a great
Yeah,
alternative
I
for
agree.
a lot of people, so that's what I'm thinking.
Mhm.
I'm even
Yeah.
thinking about it, getting together with a few of my
Yeah.
neighbors and, starting a pile and is a better alternative
Yeah.
to the ick factor.
Yeah, I agree.
Interesting. So I only see one resolution in here, but
There is only one resolution. However, the attachment is what is different.
okay.
There's 2 pages of attachments.
I got it. Okay. So I'd like to move that we adopt the rates for the collection of solid waste within the City of Placerville franchise area and adopt it as in a 2-week pickup for the what do we call this stuff?
Adopt the resolution and
Organic
rates
waste.
as proposed.
Yeah. Well, I don't know because it's an option though.
That's
Okay. With the 2-week.
We understand, yeah. That's so.
yeah, bi-weekly.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a first and a second. Can we get a roll call?
Councilmember Borelli?
Aye.
Councilmember No?
Aye.
Councilmember Thomas?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Zaragoza?
Aye.
Mayor Taylor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for being here and for commenting on this item and being involved in this process. We're going to take a 5-minute break, and we will come back at 7:28. All right, we are resuming the meeting. Item 12.1. This is to authorize the mayor to sign a letter to state legislators opposing AB 2011 weeks, the Affordable Housing and High Road Jobs Act of 2022. And Mr. Morris has this.
Before Mr. Morris goes, I have to recuse myself on this item. I have a client that's actively working on this legislation, so I won't be able to vote on it.
All right.
Good. All right. Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on this. This came late last week as we were doing our agenda. I did talk to Pierre Rivas, our Development Services Director, about it, and we both agreed that we at least wanted to present it to the council for your consideration. This is another one of those bills that the state is proposing that would limit, I'll just describe as limit public input on development that could happen. Specifically, this one would allow affordable or mixed-use housing within commercial zones without that public input, so without going to public hearing and et cetera. Would be discretionary on the part of the approvals that would go through. We feel that is not what we would like to see, and not what our general plan says, and the things that there's reasons why we put things where we do in terms of residential and commercial and industrial. And so we don't feel that this is in line with what the direction is of the city and where we would like to be. And so we're recommending that you authorize the mayor to sign a letter to the state opposing AB 2011, the Affordable Housing and High Road Jobs Act. And either Pierre and I will try to answer any questions you may have. I don't claim to be the expert on this yet. It's a newer bill that has come out. So,
all right, thank you. Are there any questions regarding this item? No? Okay, we'll open it up to the public.
Kathy Lishman. I appreciate you sending this letter. I think it's very important. And I wondered if there's no public comment, do they have to follow the rules that the city has in place? Do they have to follow design guidelines? Do they have to follow the rules, or do they not have to follow any rules? That would be my question. So it's more than just not getting public comment, if that's the case. Anyway, I'd be interested in knowing if what we have in the books they have to follow, which would be good.
Thank you, Kathy.
Sue Rodman, Placerville resident, and I would agree we need to oppose this one. Not only does it take away the public's ability to even comment, it also disses the city's zoning and says we'll put this anywhere we please, in commercial or anywhere else, is what it seemed to me that it's saying. And I think that it rides roughshod over all the communities as far as being able to design their own city and design their own community and have their own zoning and have any public input, because I think not only does it ride roughshod over the city, it rides roughshod over the residents of the city, and would definitely bring distrust, further distrust for residents, for their city and the state government. So definitely got to oppose this one.
All right, thank you, Sue. All right, I'm going to close public comment on this item and bring it back for discussion.
I make a motion that we authorize the letter as recommended.
A second.
All right, we have a first and a second. I do want to just make a couple of comments on this before we conclude. Just so the public knows, personally, I'm not opposed to repurposing parking lots that are underutilized. I'm not opposed to mixed use. I'm not opposed to increasing affordable housing, and I don't believe anyone on this council is either. What this is asking, the city's worked very, very hard over the last couple of years. Our staff has worked very hard to make updates to our zoning to accommodate our arena needs with community input, and we've done everything that the city can do. What we need is developers to build. It's not that there's a lack of places for them to do so. We just need to convince people to actually do it. And it's my belief that the main reason that we are struggling in the state to have housing built is because it doesn't make economic sense for developers to build, because it's very expensive with the cost of materials, the cost of labor, development fees, CEQA. And we have all these bills coming through the legislature, and it seems completely taboo. You don't hear anybody talking about the root causes of how expensive it is to build as a reason why we are struggling to get housing built. Instead, we get bills that ask cities, to jump through more hoops to accommodate more housing, or to throw out public input and local control on how their communities look. And this bill specifically, not only does it take away the community input and our own zoning and control with how we develop, but it also does things that increase the cost of development at the same time, which is particularly infuriating. So I appreciate you bringing this forward, and we have a first and a second. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right.
Actually, we have a recusal, so we do have to, sorry. I know.
I'm trying to get to a more efficient way to do these.
Yeah, sorry about
That's less repetitive on Regina, the way we used to do it before COVID, but I keep getting stopped. So please let the record show that Michael Saragosa recused himself from this item, and all others were in favor. All right, item 12.2. Can we bring Michael back?
Yeah, split the chips.
It was interesting today. I know you guys all got it too on the number of bills that they're asking us to oppose at League of Cities today on our.
I don't know. There's always later.
All right, 12.2. This is to approve the special event application, which includes partial closure of Broadway, Main Street, and Stagecoach Alley. And Mr. Zeller has this staff report.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'll just try to go through the staff report as efficiently as possible. We received a special event application from the Marshall Foundation for Community Health in April. It was reviewed by myself and by Placerville Police Department, and it was determined that it fell within the definition of a Main Street closure and thus needed to be come before the City Council. The application itself, and I have included that as an attachment, it states that the event will promote the city, good health, and a community spirit and be held underneath the Marshall Foundation for Community Health name, and it will also have some additional business sponsors and include professional race management and marketing. The expectation is that it would host between 250 and 500 participants. The application requests the partial closure of Broadway from the Save Mart parking lot in both lanes, then reducing the closure to only the westbound lane from the Broadway Carson Road intersection, and then that single lane closure is requested to continue through the intersection at Broadway and Mosquito as it turns into Main Street, and then continuing in the closed westbound lane all the way to the Bell Tower, which would include closure of Stagecoach Alley. And the application also requests the closure of the intersections that are listed below. There's, I think, 8 of them. But it's worth noting, too, that 2 of them, the off-ramp at Highway 50, as East Exit 47, and the Bedford South to Highway 50 would also require a Caltrans encroachment permit in order for that to be permissible, since it interfaces with the highway. The partial closure of Broadway, Main, and Stagecoach Alley, including all the aforementioned intersections, is requested to occur between 8 and 10 a.m. And it's actually 2 races that are being requested. The first is an elite race, which they can consider 6-minute minus mile participants, and then an all-inclusive second race that is timed at 30 minutes to complete the mile. The police department concluded in their safety review that the race sponsor needs to contract with a professional traffic control consultant to develop and execute a traffic control plan at the sponsor's expense, as the closure at this level of scale and complexity is beyond city resources to execute. The traffic control plan would require review and approval by the city engineer's office, and would also include having descriptions of the on-site traffic control the personnel involved, electronic and other signage, coordination with Caltrans for the effective connections, and any pre-positioned signage in the days before the event. Not included in your staff report, but worth mentioning is we had some further discussion at the department head level, and that it also centered around the need to possibly close both lanes of traffic for the entire mile, as only closing one lane could be impractical from a control standpoint. So that's the request that's before the council. And so the options are approve the race with the required plans and provisions as stated in the staff report, modify the plan, or deny. And as far as cost goes, we're at the point right now where the Marshall Foundation had wanted to find out what the viability or feasibility of it is from a approval standpoint before they dove into a lot of the costs. And I have worked with them somewhat to give them an idea of what the high cost of the traffic closure would be. And there would also be liability insurance, some city staff time, and overall event security that they would also have to bear. And I did put in the staff report that this would all be borne by the applicant. And I can take any questions. Like I said, the race application is attached, and so is a map and the insurance.
Thank you, Terry. Questions? No? I've got a couple. Is this going to be, is this going to be an annual thing?
I think that they're considering this an inaugural for a yearly event if it goes over well.
Okay. August is kind of that period of time that we were really trying, especially, to avoid street closures. So if it does become an annual thing, I would really like to see it not in August. Plus, it's super hot for running. This would be a great springtime event, I think, if it were going to go forward. I'm kind of curious what Chief Wren has to say about this one.
I like the idea of the event. I think it's a great concept, and I think personally having those type of events that bring out the community for things other than just the Main Street stuff is beneficial. A police department perspective is because of the length of the race, the mile, that would almost require a complete department recall for providing traffic control, much like we do with the Christmas parade. So that's where we started running into resource limitations as far as the police department's concerned. Summer times are always busy for us. Just our regular call volume, which is illustrated in our monthly stats, kind of shows how during these months things pick up, and to safely manage that event, we would require our graveyard officers who get off at 5 remain in the city until the race starts, and then call officers in on their days off to man the event. So,
would you still need to do that if they were to hire their own traffic control?
No.
Okay.
No.
So that would alleviate that issue.
Correct. And with the on-duty personnel, because of the type of event it is, we don't believe we would need added security to be brought in.
Okay.
Do you need to oversee it, though, or do they have to present you with some sort of a plan that you have to?
We reviewed the plan, and that's when we came up with the recommendation that they retain the services of a traffic management company.
But the traffic management plan, I had stated to council before, it would be reviewed by both engineering and I think your office should look at it.
Sure, and I would lean heavily on Rebecca and her professional opinion.
Okay. I've got to say, when I first read this item on the agenda, it took me a minute to kind of come around to it, because we have spent so much time trying to really fine tune the events that we have on Main Street and get it down to a list and a policy, and we spent a lot of time working on it. But then as I read it, my main concerns, and is through this whole process of dealing with events on Main Street, my main concerns have been impact to traffic, especially during fire season, and impact to businesses, many of which don't benefit from all of the events, and customers being able to access businesses, and the interruption that traffic causes to residents. And I do feel like, for one, the Marshall Foundation is a great community partner. This is a great event, community event, and because it's early morning, it really would not impact businesses in the way that other Main Street closures do. However, looking at the plans, it seemed very complicated for me, so I can totally understand why they would need to hire outside help for it, to not burden our police department. But I'm curious what the council thinks on this one.
I had to go to a class down in El Dorado Hills last weekend, and it was down there in the town center, and they were having a race, and I had the hardest time trying to figure out how to get to the place I needed to go. I mean, literally, they had me running around circles, and I could see people. I think Sunday morning is probably the least impact, the best possible time that you could have an event downtown. And I could, when I look at it, I mean, how can you go wrong Sunday morning? The only thing you have is people going to church. And, how do you get out to Cedar Ravine? You literally will have to go all the way down 50, get off on Main, go up over Pacific Street, and then down Cedar Ravine to get out, let's say LDS Church or out that way. I think that's, the churches, as long as they know and can tell people. But if you're coming and you want to go to Save Mart, everything's going to be, all the businesses will be closed for those 2 hours, basically. We'll have no access.
Yeah, because they have to set up and take down, and
It'll be just like the parade, and even though it ends at the bell tower, we would still recommend that the street be closed at Main and Sacramento, because it just doesn't make sense to bring them east on Main past Sacramento to have a road closure right at the bell tower. So,
well, could you maintain it so the street so they can get into the parking structure?
Yeah, we could at Center. Yeah, close it at Center. That would make sense. Yeah. But then we would have to close it at Reservoir, make sure they're not driving down Reservoir, and then close the exit on the bottom floor that dumps onto Reservoir as well. Yeah, it's definitely doable. There's nothing that it's just for us. It would. Nothing's impossible for the Placerville Police Department. Let me just get that out of the way first of all.
I'm in support.
It would just be a heavy lift for us to try to do it. But if it goes forward, you'll see me out there. You're
going to run that mile?
Let's not get crazy.
Yeah.
Although I'm built like a runner, I'm sure you guys can figure it out.
I think it's a great project. It's a great opportunity for our community to come together and do an event like this. And sometimes things like this are difficult, and you still do them. And if they want to do it, God bless them. Let them go.
I agree with one of the things that Kara said, and I'm going to say I do object to this. And the reason being is just exactly what you said. We've been working on this closing Main Street for years, and we finally got our list, and we finally have set a precedent, and I think we're opening up a can of worms. We're trying to keep Main Street open, and I think by approving of this, they're going to keep coming to us, and they're going to say, well, you let Marshall do it. There's too many other areas in this town can be used for this. And I understand the wanting to use Main Street, again, because of the popularity of Main Street and the designation, but I thought I was up at the government center, and I thought, God, they could make a mile out of this area up here. And it wouldn't involve closing all these streets, and it wouldn't involve closing Highway 50. And I just think that, I think we're backpedaling by allowing a Main Street closure. I'm sorry. And it has nothing to do with Marshall Hospital. They are good partners, but it's to do with closing Main Street. And like I say, we've worked too long and gone through too much. And I just think we're opening up a can of worms that shouldn't be opened.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, Patty. Excuse me. I've been going back and forth on this one for quite a while because I mean, obviously love Marshall. My doctor's at Marshall. I'm a supporter of the foundation. But we have gone through a lot to try to lessen the impact on Main Street. There'll always be good organizations that want to do things, including Marshall. There's no shortage of great community organizations thankfully in our area that do great work. So I could foresee, I mean, I will say that if it did go forward, I do think this is about as least of an impact time as Dennis mentioned, 8 to 10 on a Sunday morning, but still a lot of moving parts. I mean, this is not just, Main Street. There's a lot of moving parts here. So I am also a little concerned about not having any, that this would just be kind of, have a third party doing this. Without that police oversight for this many closures and movements that we usually have in place for, say, the Christmas parade. So I know I have a lot of misgivings on this one. I don't know. I think we went through how many meetings to get to the point where we went to where the list that we came up with. And this would obviously be adding to me. I mean, I'd love to see this on our trail system, at one of our parks. I mean, we have great resources here in town that I just don't see why we have to close the streets down in order to do this one.
For a race.
Right.
We just went through a really long process. We just said we're only going to close Main Street for 7 events. We did extensive public outreach. We had Peak involved. We did all of this, and we said, this is what we're going to do.
Right.
We can't make exceptions because, we really like those people, so we're going to say, come on, you guys. That's one point. The other, you keep saying there's no impact. You all know that Sweetie Pies opens at 7 a.m. and is incredibly popular on Sunday mornings. You're going to close Starbucks, Sweetie Pies, cup of coffee. What is that on Main Street?
There's a lot of places open on Sunday morning.
All your breakfast places are going to be impacted, and if they're not, like I look at Sweetie Pies, if they're not open from 7 to 10, and you've lost the day, really. You can't start there. If you had Sweetie Pie sitting in the audience telling me, yeah, sure, go for it, no, I wouldn't. This is a great event. This is going to be a fun event, and they're going to find a better place. You could go to the high school. You have a track that's perfectly set up for this. If you really, really didn't want to do it at the high school, you could set up at Ray Lawyer Drive and come down the trail partway, mark it out and go back up and have your 1 mile and have very little impact on no businesses, one intersection closure.
Street light to street light,
Yeah.
signal to signal on Ray Lawyer.
So many
It's
options
about a mile.
for this event. So I know that they're going to find a great option, and if they want to, sit down and talk, I think all of us would love to get involved in this item, just not on Main Street.
Not me. I'll walk.
Speak for yourself.
It's a race and a fun run. 30 minutes to go a mile. 30 minutes to go a mile.
Yeah.
They put that provision in for me.
Well, those were my first reactions. I've gone back and forth about this, and I don't quite know where I'm going to come down on it. But I do want to just say, when we make policies like what we've done with Main Street closures, I do think it's important to always keep in mind what the intent was. And if something comes up in the future, not to turn down opportunities that could be a good thing for the community that are in line with the intent, but maybe not exactly, what we've come up with in terms of those exact 7 events. Because, things do change over time and good ideas do come up. And I don't like to turn down good ideas. However, this does seem really complicated, and I'm interested in what the public has to say about it. Do you have anything else to add?
No, I'll
Okay.
save some comments.
All right, we'll open it up to the
Yep.
public.
And yes, you bet I have comments on this one. We worked for years to get down from a dozen times that we had Main Street closed almost every other weekend all summer long to getting down to 7. And now we want to say, oh, yeah, but these guys are really nice, so we'll let them. No, I agree with Jackie and I agree with Councilmember Morelli. It's no. The answer is no. If you want to put it on the El Dorado Trail, there's plenty of places on the El Dorado Trail where you could set up a mile and do a very nice run for a mile. But not in the middle of Main Street, in the middle of fire season, in the middle of August when it's hotter than hell. Unless Marshall is trying to get more people in the ER for heat stroke. This is not a great idea. So my answer to them would be try October, try April, try the El Dorado Trail, but not in fire season down the middle of Main Street. Not a good idea. We have our 7 things. You weren't selected to be part of that 7 because you didn't even come up with this idea when we were doing all the things for what the 7 are. There were plenty of other people who wanted to still keep their little things on Main Street, and we told them no. We need to tell Marshall no, not appropriate. You can do a Gold Rush run along the El Dorado Trail. That's just as much part of the Gold Rush as Main Street. Main Street may be nice, but this is not appropriate, and you're not one of the 7 people that we all came together and said we were going to do. So I think we still have too many on Main Street. If it were up to me, it would be down to 4. So to add another one? No, 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 no.
Thank you, Sue.
How do you really feel?
Kathy Lishman, first of all, I'd like to say I appreciated the chairs being a little farther apart. I think it makes it easier, especially when there's a lot of people together. I'm surprised this has gotten this far, and I didn't know if the council had any input before tonight. But it just seems like a dangerous situation that it starts at 2 lanes and then it goes down to 1. So what's on the other lane? Are cars driving there and rounding the corner at Mosquito to go down, from Broadway? It just seems like a very dangerous situation. And I agree. I think it should not happen because you have made that list and worked hard on it.
Thank you, Kathy. All right, I will close public comment on this and bring it back. I would like to say, the reason that, I've been on the fence about this. I was on the fence. But the reason that I was open to it was not because these were nice people or I like this group. I do like this group. I like lots of groups. It was also because it seemed like 8 o'clock, 8 to 10 on a Sunday had lower impact than the other events, and that it was a good event for the community. So just want to clarify that. That being said, I've been swayed by the arguments expressed on this item. And I do agree, my first reaction was, what about the trail? What about these other routes? And Cleve told me that they really wanted the publicity and exposure of being on Main Street, and I do understand that, but the logistics on Main Street is tough.
And, just a brief comment on that, too. We've been trying to push our other areas of Placerville and show people that there's more to Placerville than just Main Street. And, this is just kind of an example.
I just want to say that unless 3 council members want to bring another event forward, I don't want to see any more of these come forward on our agenda, if that's possible. Thanks.
How would 3 council members get wind of an event?
15, I guess, if 15.1.
So oh boy, this is interesting because I don't like the idea of ever closing the door on any ideas of just saying we're not going to do this because we made a decision. And that can happen, but we made decisions 20 years ago that we've changed, and I don't think time is a factor. I think there's a lot of factors that go into it. So I'm not so closed-minded to think that we couldn't have an event or something that would be beneficial to this community that we might want to consider. And whether it needs to be 3 people or somebody brings it to us, however that happens, I'm not stuck on that idea either. I think that I think you all make compelling arguments for why we shouldn't do it, and there's a lot of reasons why we shouldn't do a lot of things. And then the events, the reason, if you go back to why we pared down the events, it was because it was impacting Main Street on weekends during high traffic times with Apple Hill, with Highway 50, with the fire season, and most of those things that are there don't exist for this particular event. It's not during a busy time of the day. There are a few businesses that are impacted, and rightfully so. That's a valid argument. But a lot of the factors aren't there. So to close our minds off to think that we couldn't do something like this, I don't buy that argument. Just to say that we haven't and we're not going to do this and we're just going to say no to everything from now on I'm not that close-minded. And at the same time, I think you guys make some good arguments. So
I want to say I object to being called closed-minded. I did not say I would object to any event. Surely, if Amgen came through, that would be a great consideration. But the premise of this application is we want to be on Main Street for the publicity. There's going to be 20 more people that want that same thing. And that is the reason we just went through that long process. That is why we just pared them down.
Well, you clearly said you didn't want to see any other events come forward like this.
I said without 3 council members wanting to bring it forward. I don't want to take up staff time. I don't want to take up council time to keep doing these.
So we need to tell staff don't accept any more applications until you talk to 3 council members and ask them to bring it forward.
Make it more difficult than this, yes.
Okay. So, go ahead.
Well,
I'll make a motion to deny the application for the race and the road closures. I would highly encourage the foundation to come back and work with staff or any of us to come up with I think still a really good game plan to have this event in the city at multiple locations. That would be great.
I'll second it.
all right.
I'd like to make one more comment. Sure. And I fully support Marshall Hospital in this endeavor. I think it's important for our community. I think it's important for whether this is the right venue or not. I don't. It's marginal at best. I think they're pushing a tough line to do this, but I think it also should be noted that Marshall Hospital is making a really big effort to do something here at a big cost too. And hopefully they still do it. Hopefully they find another place.
And you know what? I really do think that their cost is going to be exorbitant, especially with having to hire a private company.
Yeah.
And I think it could be done in other areas that we would approve and probably lower that cost and make it a bigger success.
And I think when anyone brings something forward that I'd like to see them actually be here as well.
Yeah, that was a little shocking to me.
Okay, and I'll just make a follow-up comment before we close this out, but I also think this is a great event, and I want to see it happen. I encourage Marshall to continue planning, and I do think, I think you're right. There's many great locations in Placerville to have this event, and I hope that they move forward and find one, and that it's a huge success. So with that, we have a first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. All right.
Let's say opposed.
That unanimous. All right, item 13, council reports from other agency meetings. El Dorado County Transit Authority, El Dorado County Transportation Commission,
Yeah, we didn't meet.
LAFCO,
Didn't meet.
SACOG.
We met. The one really interesting item that came up was, and we spent, I think, 2/3 of the meeting on this. We went well over. There's a transportation measure in Sacramento County that's they're out currently collecting signatures for. However, there seems to be some disagreement, at least at this point, amongst SACOG staff and the proponents of the measure about how the transportation measure fits into SB 375 and our 19% reduction goals for the region. And so it was probably the most passionate argument that I've seen at SACOG in the 3 years that I've been on it, from cities like Folsom and Rancho Cordova that would be highly impacted by it in their sense in a positive way, versus maybe a lot of the areas, including El Dorado County, that if in fact the state finds that this would put us out of our goals, could potentially put us out of competition for SB1 dollars, other federal funds. And so Mayor Steinberg it was a very interesting meeting. Mayor Steinberg was on the call. He's been kind of trying to work with the proponents to come to an agreement. And the main thing here is the connector road. This is basically Grant Line, and turning that into essentially an expressway that would run, to the south of Highway 50, and how that would get scored into our sort of regional transportation and into our plan, our MTP plan, and so. It's very complicated, but I think the bottom line, at least for all the areas that aren't in Sacramento County, is the worry that if this goes forward in the current form, would it put the rest of us in jeopardy because we get scored as a region when some of these funding opportunities come down, even if Sacramento County were to pass this transportation measure. So more to come there. I'm hoping that we'll have an opportunity to work that out. There's 3 of us have been asked to now help with that, with those discussions. Basically, the leads of the 3 policy committees. I'd be one of those 3 that would hopefully help work this out. Because the last thing I want to see, I want to see Sacramento. There's some really good projects in there for Sacramento County, and it'd be a 40-year transportation initiative. But at the same time, I don't want El Dorado County to be and obviously City of Placerville to not be able to compete for funding if this put us in jeopardy. So more to come on that front.
Wow.
Pioneer?
Pioneer Energy. They we're going through the budget process just like the city is right now. They have a goal in about 4 years to put enough cash on hand away so they have 160 days, which is many millions of dollars, and they operate in a completely different world than we do. We're working on, I'm not even going to try and explain it right now because I still need to get a little more educated, but a bonding program to buy basically future electricity over anywhere from 10 to 30 years to purchase electricity at a reduced rate to keep our rates down. The savings is about 10% on the purchase of the electricity. And it's at a no risk. So if anything falls apart, it's very interesting. The bank is what really is held on that, not the utility. There's more to come on that. I wish I could. I think it's almost important at some point to have them come in and do some kind of a presentation as to where they're at in some of these dollars and what they're doing for this community, because what they are doing is significant in keeping our electricity, our rates in check, and keeping our costs lower than they would be through PG&E. So I'll leave it at that, but I feel very confident in the staff that we have there. They are hiring another, I think, 4 people. There'll be 17, so it'll be maybe 21 people they'll have now on staff, and they're doing a great job.
So Dennis, it's not just involved their purchasing. I thought that's how that we save is their purchasing power.
Right.
That they're So, but you're talking about now there's other areas. Maybe.
Well, there's so many different ways to purchase power. It's the electricity industry is a whole nother way of doing business, and it's a commodity, and how it's traded and how it's purchased and bonded, and it's there's
Maybe
futures. There's all sorts of things. There's all
and-
sorts of interesting aspects to it that when you think, okay, they're going to buy power a little bit cheaper, we get to pay for it, right? It's a very sophisticated
Sounds like it.
system for buying that commodity.
All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Placerville Fire Safe Council.
Well, that is just ongoing with everything we've been talking about. Again, I keep talking about, but it's, and Kara, you attended the session when we went to Sacramento that was presented with the Paradise Fire, and I think it just really, the home hardening, what we talked about, and how it pays off, and this is all the things that the Fire Safe Council is trying to, get this message out to the public and get them to believe us. It really does matter. And so, ongoing.
All right.
Right, Sue?
Thank you. The 2x2 committee has not met. And COC?
Madam Mayor, I'll defer to you. I know you were on the call yesterday.
Yeah, I had mentioned it earlier. But the main thing yesterday was that they agreed to allow the county to access some of their funding for use as the navigation center, seeing as the CDBG funding, the $2.4 million, that's mostly city or mostly county, some city money, may not be able to be used at all of the locations being assessed. So that's good news for moving it forward. Requests for future agenda items? None? Okay. City manager and staff reports. Acknowledge and file a status update on the Click2Gov online payment processing. Mr. Warren.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the council. First of all, thank you for your patience and the public's patience as we work on this project. We are close to finally finishing this project. And as an overview, the City Council approved a supplement to the city's agreement with Central Square for the Click2Gov software in the amount of $18,200 at your meeting held on August 13, 2013. Beginning in the fall of that year, staff began working collaboratively with Central Square in establishing the initial version of Click2Gov version 2. The initial software test environment was made available to staff the fall of 2014. We found the initial Click2Gov software functionally to be clunky and the website architecture and content needing extensive work. Central Square indicated that they would only make minimal changes to the software as part of the supplement to the city's agreement. As an alternative, Central Square gave staff access to the software's backdoor and the ability to modify its content and architecture. However, the application was fairly technical and extremely granular. We began working with the software content and architecture and found it extremely time-consuming. Due to other workload impacts, this work was never completed. During that time, staff also converted the Naviline financial software from an in-house iSeries or AS400 server to a cloud-based server hosted by Central Square, thereby saving $40,000 for a new server every 10 years, and also providing redundant backup. In 2019, the city converted to a refreshed version of Naviline software suite called HTML5, which is much more attractive and user-friendly than the older version of Naviline. The HTML5 conversion also included Click2Gov version 3, which is a significant improvement over the old Click2Gov version 2. Since the project began, the project manager has changed 4 times, which was also problematic, but we do have a really good project manager right now. Her name's Jakia Simons, to restart the project, and it's long overdue completion. In February of this year, Central Square gave staff access to the new version 3 of Click2Gov in test environment, and staff began testing the software. We completed the testing in April, and Central Square is working on making the necessary corrections. The old Click2Gov version 2 required the city to establish its own bank account, merchant account, gateway for credit card and e-check payments. As part of the new version 3, they have an all-inclusive online payment subscription called Central Square Payments. And we anticipate the cost of that subscription will be actually less than and a lot easier to manage than the having a separate bank account, merchant account, and gateway. And we do anticipate going live with the software in June or early July. We tentatively plan on providing the council and the public with a demonstration at your July 12th meeting. We also plan on circulating an educational notice in either the July or September utility bills encouraging customers to utilize this new software. Once completed, customers will be able to choose either to make one quick payment with minimal information with a credit card, or set up a profile and be able to do e-checks or credit card payments at a predetermined date. They can also establish an account to where they can get their bill electronically, which will be really handy.
It's going to be great.
So once it's implemented, staff anticipates gaining additional efficiencies in the processing routine payments of utility bills, business license renewals, and other charges over time. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Dave. Are there any questions? All right, I see none. I know, but I don't take, I'll open it up to public comment. So, okay, seeing no questions, I'll open it up to the public.
Kathy Lishman, at the last meeting, you didn't take any public comment on any of the things at the end. So I just wondered if there was going to be a charge for people who decide to use that program. And then also if they have a way of getting the inserts, if they decide to have something, done on a regular basis, how would they get the inserts?
All right. Thank you, Kathy.
I grew up in Placerville and watched my mom mail off checks and do the stamps and everything for all the utilities for years. And I just recently moved back and bought my own home. So I went online to pay my water bill a couple weeks ago. And I was honestly flabbergasted that there was no online payment option, that I had to go down to City Hall to drop off my check. So any effort to implement that, and it's great by July, it would be a pilot program for that, would be really good because it makes it much more convenient. I'll have to make an extra trip downtown, save the paper for the online billing, and it just be really good.
Thank you. All right, I will close public comment on this item and bring it back to the council.
Quick question. Mm-hmm. Is there, because I was wondering the same thing, is there a way to, because we'll be those people that sign up, they sign up to do this on a regular basis. They will have to put their email in because they'll get an email.
Correct.
Can we capture those emails and use those to transmit the information that people would be otherwise getting in the mail?
That's a great question. I don't have an answer for you on that, but I will look into it and get back to you on it.
Okay. I don't know if that's proprietary data for the financing, for the finance side of it, or if it's our information, or who owns that information.
Well, actually, you know what? Let me back up. It is possible they would have to enter that information because when they establish an account, when they put their address in, mm-hmm. it actually self-populates. So if we have their email address, it would self-populate. And they could also add it. So yes, they would have that.
I don't know if there's a quick
option
option to say I
extract
want to
that
receive
information.
This, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. And Dave, there's no additional charges for using this service.
The approach we took, we currently do not charge a convenience fee like some agencies. We want to encourage people to use the credit card process. It saves us time and energy. So I wouldn't recommend passing on a convenience fee to customers.
Okay.
And in regards to the inserts, that's a great idea. I'll look into that. If there's a way to send the PDF of the inserts, we'll try to do that.
That is a really great point, because that's really the only method that we have
Right.
of communicating with all of our, with how fragmented
I never thought about that.
people's news sources are. It's really hard to reach people about city needs, and the only way we have really is those inserts. And certainly, I'm sure a lot of people will sign up to go paperless, because that's how the 21st century is. And I'm glad that we're entering that period with the rest of the world. But it is something that we're going to want to consider on how we maintain that kind of vital method of communicating with our residents. So that's a really good point, Kathy. Thanks for bringing it up. Any other discussion on this? All right. I would just like to say, Dave, thank you. I know that you've been working on this for a long time, years, and it's going to be great for our residents to be able to pay their bills online. I find it staggering, and this is not against the city of Placerville or Click2Gov necessarily, but just the difference between the speed and intuitiveness and ease that private businesses are able to get websites and payment portals up and running, and the way government does it, and the quality of government websites it's a huge difference. And I don't really understand why it's so much harder.
Well, I hope you'll find this latest version very satisfactory when you
I
see
do too.
Yeah.
I really do. So thank you for your effort.
Thank you for your patience.
The next item is 15.2, and this is to acknowledge and file the HDL sales tax. Anything you'd like to highlight on that?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So just some quick statistics. Another great report on the cash basis. Your Bradley Burns sales tax, which is your general fund sales tax, experienced a 15.2% year-over-year increase, or $230,000. But when you remove the back payments, the late taxes that were paid, it actually ended up being about $117,000, or 7.3%, which is still decent. It's pretty good. That compares to El Dorado County, that experienced a 2.7% year-over-year growth, and state of California 15.6%. And then just some other statistics. Your per capita, we talked about this at the budget workshop. Your per capita sales tax dropped. It increased actually from $508 per person to $605, but our ranking dropped a little bit. We went from 25 to 32. But 32 is still a great position out of 539 agencies. We typically are in the 30s. 25 was due to our better than expected performance during the pandemic. And then as far as your top 25 sales tax producers, we appreciate all of our businesses, especially our top 25. We added back Big Lots, Ferguson Enterprises, and Jerry's Automotive Paint and Supply. And then Big Five Sporting Goods, Placerville Polaris, and Central Gas Placerville dropped out of that, slipped behind 25. So, and then Measure H and J and L, cash basis 27% up. And when you take out the prior period adjustments, 16% growth, which is still great. So, be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Dave? Anyone from the public like to speak on this item? All right, I'll close public comment. 15.3, acknowledge and file a status update on the city's effort providing sewer and water customer financial relief from the COVID-19 pandemic.
Thank you, Mayor Taylor, members of the council. So in response to the negative effects of the COVID-19 pandemic has had on residents, both their health and their pocketbook, the city pursued any grant opportunities to help provide financial relief to sewer and water customers. In September 2021, staff applied for the State Water Arrearages Payment Program, which provides a credit to customers equal to the amount of money that is owed to the city for water charges accrued from the completed billing period during COVID-19 pandemic, which was determined to be from March 4th, 2020 to June 15th, 2021. Additionally, unpaid water charges had to be at least 60 days in arrears. In January of this year, the city was awarded $59,000 in WAP funds, which includes $57,000 for customer relief and about $1,700 for administration costs. Credits were applied to eligible customer accounts effective February 16th, which were reflected as an adjustment on their utility bills this May. And then overall, 174 accounts received credits totaling $47,453. The credits range from $2.44 to $1,940. Then in April of this year, staff applied for a similar grant called the State Wastewater Arrearage, which is basically the wastewater version of the arrearage program, which provides a credit to customers equal to the amount of money that is owed to the city for wastewater charges accrued from the completed billing period, same as the water arrearage program. Earlier this month, staff was awarded the city was awarded $187,000 in WWAP funds, which includes $182,000 for customer relief and $5,400 to administer the program. Staff plans on applying the credits to eligible customer accounts effective April 16th, which will appear as an adjustment on the July bills. And according to the League of California Cities, the governor's May revised budget includes an additional $200 million in water and sewer arrearage programs, so we'll pursue those dollars if it's included in the budget, in the state's budget. Lastly, staff also enrolled in the in the California Low Income Household Water Assistance Program, or LWAP, which is a program that will provide up to $2,000 one-time benefit for low-income ratepayers who are struggling to pay their water or sewer bill. Applicant households must have 60% of state median income or less, or a member of the household must be a current recipient of LHEAP, CalFresh, or CalWorks programs. This program will be administered in collaboration with the El Dorado County Department of Health and Human Services. Both the city and DHSS staff plan on providing educational campaign to the public about the program early this summer. And we plan on distributing a public notice either in the July or September bill for that program. And then at your meeting held on September 14th, 2021, the council appropriated $50,000 in American Rescue Plan funds for the sewer and water bill assistance program. That was a program we came up with. It really didn't have any program parameters that have been established yet. So with the plentiful customer relief availability through the WAP, WWAP, and LWAP programs, and further discussion at last night's City Council workshop, staff plans on returning to the council this summer with recommendations for a reappropriation of the $50,000 in ARPA funds to address some of the city's current operational needs, such as police department equipment, training, and safety improvements for this building. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
All right. Any questions for Dave?
Dave, for the for any accounts that went to collections, is there any way for us to? I mean, obviously those were negotiated out, but is there any way for us to make our account whole with any of these funds? I mean, because obviously we sold these off for not what they were worth,
right,
for a negotiated amount. I'm just wondering if we get to, true up our accounts at all with this funding.
We can with the administrative funds. The program, both water and sewer arrearages, pay for the exact amount that was in arrearage, unless they paid the account off, or if we put them into collections outside the process, which some of these we did. We're exploring options for that to see if there's any way we can pass through those funds to those folks or retain it. But at this point, we don't have an answer for that. But I can come back with more information.
Yeah, I mean, between when we had rental assistance throughout all of COVID, you had the additional unemployment funding, and now we're adding this in the $200 million. I mean, it'll probably be in the budget because there's so much extra funding in the budget. They don't know where to put the money. Mm-hmm. So I fully expect that this money will come out because they won't send it back to us as a tax rebate to the people that actually paid it. So my guess is it'll be there. But I'd love to be able to see, us be able to try to recoup some from a financial standpoint for the city. I'd love to see these be means tested as well, but I think it's probably not going to happen. So, but thank you.
Thank you.
Dave, do you by chance know a dollar amount that went to collections between water and sewer?
I don't have the exact dollar amount. What was owed, what was in arrears as of June of 2021 represents actually for water it was 2.29%, and then for sewer it was 2.77% of overall revenues, annual revenues.
Okay, of what was
at that time
owed, including foreclosures or not foreclosures, sorry, collections, and just regular back
correct
payments.
Now that number has crept up a little bit. It's varied just a little bit, but at that time that was a definite amount.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Any other questions? Okay, we'll open this up to the public.
Kathy Lishman, as chair of Friends of Seniors, I know that there is a problem with seniors paying their bills, and I know with the garbage rates going up, and it's going to be an issue too, but I'm really happy to see the city doing a program like this. I didn't quite understand if the city got $189,000 and the people owe the money to the city, where does the money go that is in that program? And I know working with the county, I'm glad to hear you're working with Health and Human Services. And anyway, I'm really glad to see this program because the city water bills are large, water and sewer, and they keep going up. And I know how much stress it is on people when they get farther and farther behind. And so I didn't know if it's going to be able to help people before they get to the point of going to collections when I know that they're really stressed about paying their bills.
Thank you, Kathy. All right. I'll close public comment on that. Just to clarify, Dave, the money will come to the city and it will be credited to the accounts of those that have fallen behind.
All but the amount for administration. That's correct.
Okay. And this will wipe out 100% of what's owed to the city, minus the amount that went to collections.
It would pay 100% for what they owed 60 days in arrears as of June 50, 2021.
Okay.
So if they've accrued additional unpaid charges since then, this wouldn't apply to that. It would just be limited to that one period.
Okay. It's a great, I'm really happy to see this. Is between those two programs is $245,000 of assistance to those that fell behind on their water and sewer bills during the pandemic, which is way more than we were able to do with our ARPA funds. And this allows us to now look for other uses for those ARPA funds for other things that the community needs. So it's a great program, and thank you for bringing the update to us.
You're welcome.
All right, item 16.
Mayor?
Yes.
Could I bring up one issue under this item before you move on? So next Tuesday night, as you recall, is our strategic plan open house that we are doing. I have it all set up with my staff running the stations for each strategy. If more than 3 council members show up, I need to notice that as a public meeting. So I'm trying to maybe find out, do you plan on, Jackie, I know you won't be there. I've talked to you. You won't be.
I would like to be, but
I was just planning because I thought we should.
And that's great. If there's 3 of you, so I hear 2.
Are you going to?
I'm checking my calendar.
The 31st.
It's going to be we can just pop in, right?
Yeah, I'm not going to stay the whole entire time.
In that case, do we
Maybe
need to
we
still
could
notice
schedule
it?
our.
If you are going to attend it and observe, not comment, not discuss, and come in and out, then that's fine. You can do that. But if there's going to be 3 of you and you're going to...
But can we do that?
Yeah, exactly.
But So can you tell me the times that, remind me the times that it's going to be?
4 to
4 to 6, I think. I'm looking at, got it on my calendar.
I believe it's 4 to 7.
4 to 7? Okay. Yeah, 4 to 7.
Do you plan on going? The strategic.
Yeah, I do.
Your baby.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I plan on doing it.
So.
So my question
What if we promise
to our
not to
city
talk to
attorney
each
is,
other?
if one of them leaves before the 3 hours is up, is that okay?
If you can, if there's going to be a majority of you in attendance at any given time, you have to really, and we don't notice it, then you shouldn't congregate around each other and you shouldn't be talking with each other about it. Otherwise, it's fine. You're going there as an observer to see what's going on.
But we can talk to the community about
Right.
our stuff, as long as
just
we don't
won't
talk
talk to
amongst
each
each
other.
other.
Correct.
Okay, yep, okay.
If Patty looks at me, I'm just going to.
It's like, I'm not here.
So I think we will not notice it as a public meeting. We've
I
got,
don't think it's necessary. I mean,
I think so,
I plan
too.
on stopping by for
Okay.
an hour or so. but,
Exactly.
Okay,
We may,
perfect.
So.
That works. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So 16 upcoming agenda items. I'll let people read them for themselves, and then we need to go back to the special meeting, which in my let's see here. So this item is 5.1 on the special meeting, and it is to discuss CMAQ funding. And our city engineer has this report.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. First of all, I just really want to thank you for your patience in getting this item before you this evening. Its timing actually necessitated the urgency and emergency to bring it forward to you. As most of you are aware, the Transportation Commission authorized a call for projects for Congestion Mitigation Air Quality Funds, or CMAQ funds, in the amount of $8,285,414. Applications are due on June 10th. Our next council meeting isn't until June 14th, which occurs after the deadline. In order for the city to be an eligible applicant in submitting a complete application, a resolution authorized by City Council allowing staff to apply for said funding is required. A nearly identical resolution was already passed by City Council in January of 2016. However, that resolution has now expired. This item would allow staff to pursue CMAQ funding in this call for projects and future call for projects over the next 10 years. A sample of CMAQ projects that the city has recently delivered on include the trail additions at Forney Road and Upper Broadway Bike Lanes project. We're also actively working on the Placerville Drive Bike and Pedestrian project, which has received the majority of its funding from the CMAQ program. In this particular call for projects, staff has identified the need to submit for 3 applications. The first is for a Placerville Drive interim pedestrian improvement project, which spans from Ray Lawyer Drive to Highway 50, and then the Canal Street Bike and Pedestrian project, which would install bike and pedestrian facilities throughout the run and near the schools on Canal. And then also an application for the replacement of the city Vector truck due to CARB regulations regulated by the state. This concludes staff report, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
All right. Thank you, Rebecca. Any questions? No? I'll open this up to the public.
This is a yes. We definitely need to get on the board for the CMAQ funding. It does good things for our roads and trails and other things, so yeah. I'm glad we found out about it, because if you get behind, then your 10 years of funding, you don't get it.
Thank you, Sue. All right. I'll bring it back. Yes, please pursue funding. Would anybody like to make a motion on this item?
I'll make a motion to approve this.
Okay.
Second.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. All right. I am going to adjourn both meetings, the special meeting and the regular city council meeting, at 8:45. Thank you all, and have a great night.